sharing my screen. I'm going to record this session. I had a number of people that had theater practices and plays coming up and state debate and some other things going on. My name is Mike Harris. I coach at Wichita East. I do debate and forensics there. If we haven't met before, um, I just as a precursor to this whole discussion, if you haven't got a chance to join us for any of these, I don't represent anybody or anything. At Astra Debate is my own creation, which means that I'm not accountable to anybody, which means cool things like I can tell you right off the bat, I don't represent an agenda and I'm not going to judge you in what you're going to do for tournaments. Um, all I want to do this year is try to facilitate and make sure as many kids have the opportunity to compete as possible and make it as easy as possible for everybody around to do what's best for them. And so one thing to remember tonight is I'm not tied to any method of hosting a tournament, any event structure, any rule structure. I'm going to try to approach this from a um, here's what's available for you, and here are considerations that I consider and are things that I run into at tournaments before. And my plan tonight, in just a second, is actually we're going to talk real quick just about Tab Room, just the basics, kind of a refresher if you're just now getting familiar with Tab Room. And what I'd really like to do is, if you want to tonight, as I'm doing this, just set up a tournament, and you all can follow along if you go to tabroom.com and log into your accounts. And we can create a tournament that nobody ever will see except for you, if you don't want anybody to see it. And it will be a test tournament that's not open to the public, and it will be a way for you to get in and start. As I'm going through the event settings, you can go through it on your own, and you can choose the options that may fit best with you. And then with the foundation set, hopefully everybody can come back, and we can work with each other to help each other as we build things out, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. So um, I'm not good at looking at the chat, just so you know. I'm also not good with formalities. So if you need me to stop or you have a question, just be like, yo, slow down. Hey, hold on a second, go back to that. Can we talk about this? Um, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. This is really for you. And P.S. I want to say one other thing. I've learned more from working with people around the state in the last, and well, since I became a coach, the time when I started learning the most was when I started opening my eyes to seeing how other people did things. It allowed me to improve what I did. And the best experience I've had as a coach is learning from other people around me. So you all will teach me probably things I don't know tonight too, which is helpful. I do coach at East, so I host 3A state championship and state festival. So I do try to make sure that I know, you know, even if my squad's away doing crazy things, what can I do to help you and your circuit and your region do what you need? So does anybody have any questions or anything that I need to know before I get started? All right. Just a quick refresher, and if you're logged into tabroom.com, um, once you log in, if you click your email address in the top right, the screen that you're in is kind of what I'm explaining right now. I'll pull this screen up in just a second and I'll run through it again. But just a refresher, when you're looking at Tabroom and navigating tabroom.com, the page that you see when you log in and you click your email is the school page. That is the page for your school if you have a school account, and all of that is already set up. There is a home page, and if you click home, there's a row of tabs up above all of your school information. It's like home and paradigms, and I don't remember, there's access, and there's a whole NSDA maybe. That page is like what the public sees when they go into Tabroom. That's the home page. That's the most basic. You're not a member, you're a parent, you're going to the website. That's kind of what you would see in that situation. Once you're logged in, that's your school page. And if you look at your school page, depending on where you are, what you typically see in the big column on the left side would be your existing tournament registrations. If you're an NSDA member, you'll see your district tournament information. And then below that, you'll see any tournament that exists on that is open for registration that you can register for. And then on the right side of the screen, there's a right side banner. And this is where you'll see, like, it should say your institution. And then if you set up a tournament or you're hosting a tournament or have access, it will show tournaments that you have access to. As you begin judging, there's a column there that allows you to keep track of your judging information. You can go back to see what rounds and tournaments you've judged. And then at the bottom of that right side banner, there's your account information. And then just real quickly, remember that always, if you get lost in Tab Room, click your email address at the top right, and it will take you back to the main school page and allow you to get back to a place where hopefully you're familiar and comfortable with. Okay. Before I go to Tab Room, I just want to kind of give you all an idea of what we'll be talking about tonight, so you can think about, as you're setting up your tournament, information that you're going to need to know to get it set up. It's real basic stuff, and I think that everybody would be like, yeah, I know exactly what I would do. But maybe the biggest thing that you're going to need to know is you're going to need to think of what you want the tournament to be called, the web name. It could just be like the name of your school. It could be like East Debate or East Forensics or whatever your school name and the name of the tournament. Just pick something simple, because you can take that custom email address and put it into your invite. And you can tell people, if they ask, how do I register? Just go to tabroom.com/eastdebate. Just once you've set it up once, you'll be able to use the same one over and over. So it's really just the first time that you kind of have to figure that out. You need to remember that as you're thinking about your tournament this year, depending on whether you're doing completely synchronous or asynchronous and synchronous, your tournament schedule might look differently. So think about, what day does your tournament start and what day does it end? For example, this year I'm hosting my speech theater events asynchronously using recorded videos. So my tournament, while it's normally a Friday debate event, Saturday forensics events, this year the tournament actually starts on Tuesday in the world of Tab Room, because on Tuesday I'm going to start sending out preliminary links to videos for judges to be judging during the week. And we'll talk more about that in a second. And if that seems confusing, I'll help you through that. There's going to be an option for you to clone setup. And what I want you to know is what you do the first time is the hardest thing you'll do when you learn to use Tab Room. Once you've set your tournament up and sort of figured out how it works, in the future, next year when you do this, you're just going to go in and you're going to say, clone the setup of the tournament from the year before, and you'll never have to think about most of this again. Okay. There is a button that says test tournament. That's your friend. If you like what you've done with your tournament, as you set up this test tournament that only you can see, at the end of it, I'll show you where you can unclick it as a test tournament and it can become the tournament that you use. You do also want to probably be thinking about deadlines, and I'll show you what that means. Like, what are your entry deadlines? When do you need judge information? That kind of thing. Obviously, what events you're going to be using. If you've got an invitation, you'll have the ability to upload a traditional invitation. So anybody that wants a copy can go to the website.
Mike, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
If the tournament's going to look a lot different this year because it's online and I'm going to be changing some events, should I still clone the tournament?
Excuse me, I tried to take a bite while you were doing that. You didn't buy me enough time.
I'll sing you a little song.
No, thanks for vamping for me. I cloned my tournament from last year because now I have a whole lot of events, so I really didn't want to spend the time trying to recreate it. I think that it's fine because really the online settings are all in one tab, and you can kind of run through that and fix it pretty easily. So you should be okay. You got a school logo or something that you want to show up on invoices and on the web page, you can get that. And then again, be thinking about the schedule. So I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint and I'm going to jump over here to Tab Room real quick. Can everybody see my tabroom.com homepage now?
Yep.
All right, cool. Okay. When I said the difference between the homepage and the school page, what I meant was...
Don't give it to the dog. If you don't, what you eat, don't give to the dog.
Okay. What I meant by homepage versus your school page is I am on my school page right now, and you can see this is where it shows me the tournaments that I'm registered for. So it lets me keep track of, here's the Debate Coaches Invitational was last weekend. It's still showing up with the results tab. Here's the state championship. I'm registered for my own tournament this year and some other tournaments in the spring semester. Underneath this, it shows me my Sunflower district. I'm an NSDA member, so all that's there. And then down below, it shows all of the tournaments that are available for registration. And I always like to just sort it by location. If you just click on location, it will alphabetize that column. And you can scroll down to Kansas, and you can see in Kansas right now, you can register for the Hutchinson Invitational, the Catholic Classic, which is St. Thomas, Riverside's registration's open, Abilene, Lansing. There's already quite a few tournaments that are open for registration. And throughout the year, usually when you get an email that says my tournament's open for registration, this is where you will go and find it on Tabroom. Quick refresher, I'm going to go to the Catholic Classic. Registering for a tournament is simple as clicking register. When you do that, it's going to ask you contact information. All of your information will be saved. And then there'll be a row. You can do student signups. This is kind of stuff that we talked about last time, so I don't want to spend much time. If you want to turn on signups so your students can sign up for tournaments via Tabroom, where you can still approve them or decline them, but this replaces the sign-up sheet. You can do that. There's a place for you to be able to email your students and your judges and the parents of the students who sign up. And then entering the tournament is simple as going to the entry tab. And then on the right side, it shows all the events that are offered. I know I'm going to send some people in public forum debate. When you say you want to add entries, it'll ask you what students. You just have to have choose a student that's on your roster, and you click and add them to it. If you need to add a student and you don't have a roster built, you can build a roster. And again, that's something that we kind of talked about last time. As I mentioned before, always top right corner, your email address gets you back to the beginning. I have registered, and you can see now I've registered for the Catholic Classic. It shows up in my tournament registrations. I didn't put any entries in yet because I don't obviously have numbers. I just want this coach to know, yes, my school plans on coming. This sort of replaces the email back that says, save me a place.
Hey, Mike, I have a quick question.
For sure.
Can you, I don't want my tournament open to everybody. I'm just I've already sent out the email. Can I restrict that?
Yeah, you can make it a closed tournament where you register the schools that you want, and it's actually really easy to register them. Okay. And I'll show you how to do that tonight. So you could create your tournament, take your list of schools, and just manually add them. If you want to be, you can do things as traditional as you want. If you want to do everything yourself, you can manually add schools. You could have coaches send you their entries the old-fashioned way, and you could put them in if you want to have control over that. You could manually enter judges, or you can have Tabroom automate as much as you're comfortable with for what you're doing. Okay.
You said that.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Kim.
When you said that some of this was stuff you talked about last time, do you mean the meeting that you had that was like the Friday? It was the Monday that we came back to school, 4th. Is that when that
I believe so.
Okay, I found where I can watch those videos, but I haven't done it yet. So that helps me. And I'll just pick those things up later.
Yeah, and just saying, and so everybody that's here knows what we spent most of our time covering in that meeting was very much like, if you're completely new to Tabroom, here's how you get started. If you're new to a school, if you're a new coach to a school, shoot me an email and I'll find out if that school has an existing account and I can add you.
I have it. I found mine. Cool. I've done this. I think this is my 3rd year, but I'm not by any means salty at it yet. So
I think the cool thing is, as I turn my phone off, you'll pick it up quicker than you think you will. And once you kind of can see how they've designed things and you can figure out where things are, it becomes pretty easy. And as far as setting the tournament up, just so everybody knows, we're going to keep it real simple tonight. Just like, here's how to set it up, basic general settings. We'll set up maybe an event, like a speech event, a partner event. We'll talk about some just like event settings. but we're not going to get into like, this is how you run the tournament the day of, and this is how you do judging.
Yeah.
We'll come and do that later because that's a whole nother ball of wax. Somebody else asked a question, I thought.
Yeah,
Mike,
I have a question. Oh.
Go ahead,
So-
DJ.
Okay, on the registration page where it lists all the tournaments that are available,
Mhm.
will it say whether they are virtual or in person?
Yeah. On the hold on. Get going. In the center column here where it says city, if it's a virtual tournament now, you'll usually here. I'll sort these by location. And go to Kansas. So it'll show the location of these tournaments, and you can see like right now if it says NST campus or online.
So
Those
the ones that say campus means it's in person?
those are all online using the NSDA campus platform.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's it's sort of like just like if your school uses Zoom or Microsoft Teams or something like that, the NSDA has their own little video conferencing system that some tournaments use, and it's really easy to use. And that might be a whole discussion of how to use campus at some point.
Okay, but the one that says like Tawanda, would that be an in-person?
So let's see. When you click on that tournament, it says it's showing me that it's the location is in person. He doesn't have an invitation posted,
Okay,
so I don't know for certain. Let me go back and look at another one. Now, don't go telling the entire state that I'm helping people find in-person tournaments. I'm going to get political.
I will tell you, I think, gosh, I can't, somewhere on there, because I was on there today, DJ, and it's going to be like a lot of tournaments that the prelims are asynchronous and the finals are, at least I remember that, I think. It was on Tawanda's anyway. So
Here's Riverside. Locations.
okay. Yeah,
Um,
I'm scared to death because I don't know how to do any of that virtual stuff.
Is if it comes DJ into like how to get your kids into the virtual stuff, we'll try to help you
Yeah.
as much as we can.
Okay,
I know there are going to be some in-person tournaments. I don't think I'm probably on the list of coaches that are getting those invites right now, would be my guess.
okay, okay.
I
Oh.
looked at the requirements that Keisha put out, or the suggestions. I don't think they can actually call them requirements. I don't see how anybody can host in person and follow those, meet those requirements or those suggestions. I don't see
I know
how.
it was like 3 pages. I
Yeah,
saw
I don't
Scott
see
City
how.
was City was doing it in person, but they're like 3 hours away, so never mind.
I just don't see how I don't see how anybody can do it unless they just kind of do it.
What I've heard a couple of people
suggestions.
say is kind of what was just mentioned, and there's a number of tournaments I've heard where like we're going to do video submissions for prelims, and then we'll announce our finalist, and we'll only have finals at the school. So on Saturday we can bring in like one event at a time throughout the day, have the judges and this competitor spaced out, use different rooms. It's definitely going to be an interesting, like I can't, my school won't let me host in person. They've just told me that's flat out not an option, but you all tell me what it's like. And I think you could do it. It's just going to be difficult. I just want to say one other thing as I'm looking at Riverside in the top right corner, when you go to register for a tournament, I'm not registered yet. I'm just looking at this one. It says tournament invitation.
Uh-huh.
And if you click on that, when the tournament host uploads their invitation, this is where it usually shows up.
Okay.
In theory. Yep. So this one, so if you have a question, you can go look and you can see that this one is a virtual tournament.
Virtual.
Yep.
I think Riverside's here.
Is it?
I think they are. I mean, like at the meeting.
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Shauna.
Hey.
How are you? I didn't mean to use yours as an example, but it worked out perfectly.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just to dinner with my kids before I could actually do anything.
I understand completely. I'm like munching on Doritos and drinking coffee on the side. So
Yeah.
You can see, and I'm going to use Sean as an example again. She does have some notes on her invitation where she's taken into consideration some of the things. I know that I spent Sunday afternoon, it took me about 3 hours with my assistant coaches trying to redo my invitation and figure out exactly how it was all going to work. Plan on spending a little time thinking about that beforehand. All right. Are there any other questions, like just before we get into building the tournament?
Yeah, I've got a quick question.
What's up, Wes?
Let me look over here at it. You were talking about the signups that you can have students do their own signups and then approve it. Is there a way that I can somewhere I can go to see it from a student's point of view so that I can basically teach them how to do the sign up?
The best way that I've been able to do it is when I do my class day, where I take my novices and I sign them up for the first time. When the kids are doing that, once they get registered and hooked up with East and logged in, that I can't show you. I can tell you what it looks like from what I've seen, and what it looks like is exactly what your coaches looks like, except instead of existing tournament registrations, it says tournaments you can register for. And it has a list
on the sign up page. Like I went to the sign up page, it says pending, accepted, rejected. Is there like, do I tell them to go to the sign up page or?
Well, the sign up shows up right here. And just like you get a sign up where you would register, they would see it. They would just go register for it. And they would choose their events and tell you what they wanted to do. And then once you made the decision to accept them, reject them, or whatever, it would send the message back to them with whatever you decided.
Okay, so they'd go to like entries like I would to do it.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
For sure. All right. Setting up a tournament. If you go down to the bottom right, this is where I mentioned earlier. You can see I'm hosting a bunch of tournaments right now. Once you set up your tournament, this is where it'll show up. When you want to go into that tournament to play with it, you just click on it. So like if I go into the East High Blue Aces tournament, it will always look like this. And that shows me a list of the schools that have signed up. And I'll show you where this page exists. Tonight, we're going to be messing with settings. To start a new tournament, and I keep clicking on my email address to go back to the beginning. Down in the bottom right, it says request a new tournament. And this is once you click on that, this is the basic page, and you're going to put what your tournament name is. I'm going to set one up to test forensics. I don't have an existing web name, so I'm going to do add Astra forensics. I'm going to pretend mine is in March because I don't know when this tournament really would be.
That threw me off. I'm like, what the hell? It's like, it's Halloween? What is this?
All right, that's for Linda Goldsworth.
Yeah.
When you set your dates for your tournament, you just need to make sure that the starting time is actually before the first round starts. I usually just do like 8 o'clock the morning of the tournament, and that your end time as well after your last round will be over. If you are going to do any online competitions, whether it's prelims or the entire thing or one event, if you're doing anything online, you'll click. And somebody mentioned earlier, like NSDA campus, DJ asked, NSDA campus, that's the NSDA's one. This is one, like they're charging NSDA districts to use their own software or use their own system. I like to use other service because other service is free if I know how to run a tournament. Make sure your time zone is set up for Central Standard Time. Default Mexico City is Central Standard Time, so is Chicago. And this is where you see the clone setup from. The first time that you do this, you're going to say, no, just create it from scratch. The next time you go set up a tournament, it will show you any tournament that you've set up and run in the past. And you can choose to recreate that tournament. Okay. Once we set up a tournament, if you need help, like if you don't get a tournament set up tonight and you want to do this in the future, let me help you. I can go in and I can clone somebody else's tournament to do a lot of the heavy lifting to get the majority of the settings taken care of and allow you to just go fine tune things. I'm going to set this one up from scratch. I'm going to click a test tournament because I don't want anybody in the public to see this yet.
If I make it a test tournament, I can change that later, right?
Correct. And I'll show you exactly where that setting is in just a second. And then set deadlines. Now, if you don't want to have people register and the public to see this, you want to take care of it yourself, just set online registration deadline for some time in the future, and we'll adjust things in the settings. If you want it to be, this is a test tournament, so it really doesn't matter. New entries are due by. That's up to you and what's best for your circuit. I will say this, if you're doing asynchronous in your events and you're having people turn in recordings, you're gonna have to have your new entries due probably at least 5 days before, by like Monday, the week of the tournament, so that you can get people watching videos throughout the week. And then Tab Room allows you to do things like some of the big tournaments, they'll start fining you if you're missing obligations, and you don't have to use any of these things. Judge registration deadline is something you should consider.
If I cloned my tournament, is that why I'm not seeing deadlines?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Judge registration deadline, I usually didn't in the past of like, I've gotten in the habit, as people are requiring schools to bring judges to cover their virtual entries. I didn't used to require people to give me their judges until the tournament started. Like you could keep working on judges all the way up till Saturday morning for all I cared. As long as your judge showed up on Saturday morning, I was fine. In a world where we might be having judges watching videos throughout the week before, it's going to be important that you think about your invitation, having a firm deadline, or making sure that schools know, like, if you require schools to bring judges, that you are going to need their names and their Tab Room accounts beforehand so that they can access their rounds. Registrants can drop in name change online. This is a cool feature that I'm now conflicted about. This feature sort of allowed us in the virtual world to bypass that old Saturday morning, every coach shows up in your classroom to give you their list of drops, because you just allowed coaches to continue to make changes online right up until 7:30 or 7:45 or whatever time you decided to put out your pairings. And the computer works so fast and you don't have to pre-do schematic. So at 7:30 or 7:45, you take the accurate information and you make that schematic, and it's balanced, and you don't have to worry about too many schools in the same section, and you don't have to worry about judge conflicts because the computer figures that out. I say that this is awesome because if this my tournament's on Saturday, I set this to be 7:30 in the morning on Saturday and I call it a day. In a world where there's asynchronous, you might have to consider requiring judges or schools to have names before then. You don't want a coach going and messing with the entries in an event after the preliminary rounds have already started on Monday. I don't know how Tab Room is going to handle all that. I would think they've got it set up so the coach can't mess things up, but I'm also a realist and I know that it's not perfect yet. So just a consideration.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
How did judges, you said they have to have a Tab Room account?
Yeah, and this is really easy, DJ, and the community judges we've had in Kansas in every classification in every part of the state have picked this up real easy. They set up a tabroom.com account and they sign up to judge through that email. And the way that you get them their ballot and you get them their round is when you schedule it in Tab Room and you assign it to a judge. So round one, Mike Harris is judging HI. When you blast that schematic and make it public, that judge now, when they log into their Tab Room, it says start ballot. It shows them a ballot with their competitors. It has a place for the ranks and scores and feedback for each of the people in the room. And that's how they access and fill out their ballots during rounds.
Okay, but if you're not hosting the tournament, but going to a tournament and they request a judge, they have to have a Tab Room account too, if you're bringing one?
It's going to be dependent on the circuit you're in. The host will set some hosts. A lot of schools are requiring it. Major like for example, this weekend is the state championship debate tournament. All of the judges have to have linked tab room accounts to judge that tournament. If it was in person, they would also have to have a linked account to judge it because their ballots would be online. And they can judge on any device they want. And there's really good instructional videos to get judges set up for the first time and to help them through that process. It seems daunting, but I don't think.
Can we judge?
What's that?
Can we as coaches judge?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And not all tournaments will require judges. Like I'm still going to try to recruit a community judge pool. I think my parents can do this. My parents can sign up, create an account, and they can judge rounds. We've had quite a few parents that have been able to do it effectively.
Hey, Mike, I know Eric Skoglund has done some how-tos for setting up that kind of stuff in regards to debate. Has anybody done like a how-to for forensics coaches or forensics judges? Because our small, some of us don't live in the debate world at all. And I know it looks very similar, but the terminology is going to be just off enough that we'll look at it.
Eric told me that his first thing on his to-do list when the state tournament's over Saturday is that video for forensics.
Okay, perfect.
The NSDA does already have open to the public on the speechanddebate.org website how-to videos for judging forensics. You can also go to YouTube. If you go to the NSDA YouTube page, my son must be upstairs playing on his tablet because my internet sure got slow. If you go to the National Speech and Debate Association YouTube channel, and you show all the videos, you can find some how-to judge videos. You can also, this is a cool resource to give to your judges. Like you can give them the link because there's a lot of like, I know events are different in different places, but there are some like example events and they can watch some rounds to see what a round looks like. Because the national championship was online this summer, they can see what does split screen duo interp look like? What does an HI on the screen look like? In fact, I'll tell you my to-do list as soon as state debate is to figure out exactly what it looks like so I can try to figure out how I'm going to get my kids to look like that. Because I don't know. I don't know any more than anybody else does. And if you, like I said, if you look here on the videos, they've got a ton of resources, just a ton. I'm not gonna waste any more time there. All right. Tab room, the last function here is like, do you want to find people if they drop entries after a certain time? I don't find that anybody in Kansas really appreciates when they look at their invoice and there's a bunch of fines because they showed up Saturday morning with some drops. If you wanted to play that game, you can, but we usually don't do that.
Well, with COVID, that might happen a lot.
Well, and that's one of the things about having Grace this year. I can't tell you the number of tournaments where on like Saturday morning, I've got at 7 o'clock a call from a coach who said we were temp checking somebody on the way in and we couldn't let them in the building. We had to send them home. And so I need to drop an entry or, that kind of thing going on. Okay. Tournament circuits. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on tournament circuits. I would just say this: there's a Kansas circuit that we try to use. If you are a high school in Kansas, please join this circuit. This is where you find anybody who signs up for their tournament and says they're part of the Kansas circuit. Only other people in the circuit will see these tournaments. Okay. If you don't select I'm a part of the Kansas circuit's not going to see this. Okay. There is a national circuit. Kansas does allow us to have people from out of state compete at our tournaments if they want to. So there are Missouri and Nebraska, Oklahoma circuits. South Kansas has a circuit. I'm not sure exactly what it looks like. I'm not a member of it. I always just default to Kansas. Then it's going to ask you to set your tournament location. Option A is online using the NSDA's site, the NSDA's product. I don't know a lot about it. I haven't used Campus to host. I've been using Zoom for everything. If you're doing any kind of recorded videos for any events, you're going to click online asynchronously. If you're going to do a combination of asynchronously and flip the switch and go to synchronous for finals, you still want it to be online asynchronously. And otherwise you won't get the option for people to upload. If you've never hosted an online tournament, a site before, you probably want to create one. Don't use your school site because your school site is a physical site and it won't give you a way to add links to a Zoom room or links to whatever the service. So like I made at Astra online debate hall, or I could make a Wichita East online debate hall. Just make sure when you click it, you click that it's an online site. That way that you can put links to the meetings in it.
Hey, Mike, I had a question before you get too far away from the dates.
Yeah.
So like mine was supposed to be the 23rd and now I'm moving it because yay, COVID. So when I go into Tab Room and then on the dates, since mine's already set through Tab Room and I requested a new, whatever it was called, can I go in and change that, like the start date?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Once you've created the tournament, you can do anything you want to it. It will become whatever you want to, you know, before you've started it. Now, once you've started the tournament, obviously you can't, it won't let you mess with that. But in like for the situation you're in, you can see I already went too far. We're actually going to start with, I'll show you exactly where you can fix that in here if you're not sure where it's at now.
Okay.
I clicked return to home screen, or you can click on your email address. It will take you back here. You should see the new tournament that you set up on the right side. Like the one I set up was at Astra Test Forensics. So I will get, I'm the Kansas circuit coordinator. So if you've requested a tournament on the Kansas circuit, me or a couple of other people, one of us will look at it and make sure, yeah, you're legit a Kansas school and you're not some weird group trying to exploit our students, and we'll approve your tournament and you'll be good to go. Okay. To keep things simple here, when you get into your tournament, this is the screen you see. And where you are, if this is a map, the easiest way to think about tab room is to try to figure out each one of these tabs has a very specific function. If you know what that function is, it gets a lot easier to find where you're going. This right here, it says school. This is entries. The entries tab shows you what schools are entered, what events you have at your tournament, any judges that you have. This is where you would get reports about those things. Earlier, I think Megan was asking about how to add a team. This data section, this is how you would go in and manually add a team, and we'll talk about that in a second. The screen you're on right now is entries in schools, and there's nothing here because nobody's entered to my tournament yet. Okay. Where we're going to start is over in settings, and we're going to try to get through at least the tournament and rules and results tonight. I think that's a pretty good chunk for the evening. That and also we're going to look at we're going to get through tournament, rules, results, judges, and events. We'll talk about the schedule sites, and we're going to get through all this. That's it. We're going to get through all of it. All right. Tournament. This is your general settings for your tournament. The things that you set up when you created this tournament, now you're starting to see it show up here. It says, this is at Astra Test. It has my website name. It shows that it's an online tournament, all of that. I mentioned earlier, if you want to put your invitation or you want to see an invitation, this is where you would upload your invitation. You just click choose file, and I've got a forensics invitation somewhere here. East forensics invitation. When you add it, make sure you click save. If you don't click save, it doesn't add it.
Mike, before you get too far, I'm sorry. I was still on the page where you were doing site room settings.
Okay.
And you said that like the existing host site, do you do Zoom virtual then site, or is that where you go down and do a new host site name?
Go ahead and just create a new one for your school, Nan. Just be like,
okay,
school name online, and just make sure you click that button. And we'll add the room numbers, and we'll talk about a numbering system that's easy to use.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for stopping me. I'm used to my kids in my classes that never have a single question, and then at the end of the unit, they've got like a million questions after I've given them hours and hours of my time, willingness to, yeah, anyway. If you host Congress, this is where you would put your Congress legislation. If you have a logo that you would like to show up on the main website for the tournament, it also shows up on your invoices. When people print their invoices, you can add a, if I can find one, you can add a picture file. Yeah, I'm going to put an East logo on an Ad Astra tournament. That'll be smart. Again, make sure you save it. And then once you've added those things, you can see on the right side, like it says posted invite. That tells you, yes, you've posted an invite. You can see now that I've added my image to this tournament. It shows up there, and every time somebody goes to it, they'll see that image. It also shows on the bottom that, yes, this tournament is listed in the Kansas circuit and it's been approved. And if I wanted to add something else, I could there. Okay. That's the name and info. The next tab to the right is your just general settings. And I'll walk you through each of these and tell you what they each kind of mean. If you have questions at the end of the page, just ask me. This is where it gets into like everybody has to do what's best for them, and you've got to kind of figure out what you think you need in terms of information. I do require adult contact for a school to register. I want to know who the person I need to contact if something goes on, if I'm missing a judge, if I can't find a kid. Ask for adult contacts by category. This would be like if you have like speech events and theater events, you could ask for a specific judge or a specific contact if there were multiple people. You can ask for a secondary contact if you think it's important you have 2 phone numbers. I click log registration changes. I don't know why. It's sort of like keeping a check register. I just feel like I'm supposed to do it even though I know I don't have to anymore. I want to know like if somebody does something crazy, even though in theory I'm the only one who could do something crazy. Hide speaker codes from registrants. I don't know why you would hide their code from them, but if you wanted to, you could. Megan, you ask about a closed tournament where you add it. This is the setting you would say yes. Closed tournament. Me as the staff member, I'm going to register the schools. That way you don't have to make your tournament open to the public and deal with the public onslaught. Wait listed entries. We'll talk about this. This is sort of something that you have to decide. Tabroom gives you the ability to let coaches register a whole bunch of to be named entries. That's cool with some coaches. Some coaches say, no, I want a name. I'm not accepting your entry until you give me the name. And I'll show you how that works. What this function would tell you is waitlisted entries still hit double entry. This would be like, if I only allow Wes's kid to enter 2 events at my tournament, and Wes signs them up for 3 events, even if they're waitlisted in an event, it would still trigger that. Nope, you can't enter the 3rd event. Even though you're waitlisted in event number 2, we're not letting you add event number 3 because we expect we're going to let you off that wait list. Refund information. Not common in Kansas. If you need to, you'll have the school information if you needed to get it. But if for some reason you wanted to ask where to send a refund check, you could. If you wanted to have an NSDA member only tournament, the NSDA will be more than happy to help you build a wall around their member schools so you can't let non-members in. I do publish a list of registered schools. That way, when if I have an open tournament, I like to know who's eating when I go to a tournament. Kind of, my kids like to see who's going where. Kind of makes it exciting. We don't mess with school regions in Kansas. tournament-wide cap on entries. I think from a philosophical standpoint, this is something to think about this year if you're hosting a virtual tournament. If you host virtually and you are requiring schools to bring judges, in theory, you really don't need to limit the number of entries in your tournament anymore, because all you're doing is opening enough rooms to facilitate competitions and making sure that people go to the right spot. A lot of people are still like, I'm limiting, this is where you would put. Now, Tab Room doesn't let you limit things the way, like, when it says tournament-wide cap on entries, they're just talking about a total number across the board for every school at the tournament. School code style. This is one that's going to be very personal to you and your tournament and your circuit. This is saying, you know, in my area, putting Wichita East in front of my kid's name is not faux pas. I don't mind if they go to a tournament and it says on the schematic Wichita East Mike Harris. That's not popular everywhere you go. If you want to make it a code where it's like AA Mike Harris, so nobody knows who they're seeing and it's blind, all you need to do is go here and click incremental, and you can set it up so it can be letter codes or number codes or whatever you want it to be. Short and school name will just be what it says. It would show like Wichita East or Olathe Inn or whatever. You could set up as registrant choice where when people register, they put what they want their school to be shown as. That's kind of up to you what you do there. If you decide to do incremental, right under here is where you're going to put, here's what I want the codes to start at. So when schools register, if I put A here, school number 1 is going to be A, school number 2 is going to be B, and it's just going to go in order. When it runs out of letters, it will start doing AA, AB, AC, AD, AE, etc. Allow duplicate codes in different events. Codes in different events. This would be like, I don't do this because it would drive me crazy as a tournament host. This would be like, for example, each one of my events, I've given a number code. So oration is the 100s for student entry codes. Informatives are 200s. Like I've created different numbers. This would be like if I wanted to use 100s for every event, and it would be like, yeah, you could have a 101 in multiple events that are different people. I think that would be a mess. I think that would be absolutely ridiculous, but it would let you do that. Do not avoid ADA rooms. We'll talk about ADA rooms. This is an in-person setting. Tab Room, when you set up your tournament site and you put your rooms into it, allows you to mark rooms that would be ADA accessible. In my building with 3 floors, that matters a lot. If grandma's coming to judge, I don't want to put her on the 3rd floor, so I do mark mine. This setting would tell the computer to ignore any requests for ADA rooms. Paper size. Tab Room will allow you to print out absolutely everything that gets inputted in here. If you wanted to run a paper tournament after everybody's registered and you've done all the schematics and you've let the computer work, you could print out a paper copy of everything. And once you're done with that, make sure you always hit save settings. Even if you don't think you need to, just click it anyway, just to make sure.
Hey, Mike, quick question.
Yeah, Alyssa.
For a lot of smaller schools, 1A, 2A, 3A,
Right.
most of our tournament increments tend to run using numbers. Like each school is assigned a particular number and then a letter for each event. Is there really not a way to use numbers on Tab Room? Is that pretty well?
Nope, just instead of putting an A there, I just put 1 there, and it will start it as a 1 instead, and it will do it numerically. And then I'll show you when we set up events, how it will code the entries in that event, and you can set that up to do letters instead. Perfect. You have the ability to make it do exactly what you want it to do. And if you're like me, I'll mess something up when I'm setting up the tournament, and I'll have all of the events coded the way I want to, and there'll be like one that's messed up. You can go back and fix that without destroying your whole tournament real easy if you make mistakes like me.
Thanks.
Online day of registration. This is a setting that I've loved. It's been wonderful. I don't need people to come to me anymore for registration. I simply open up an online day of registration. I click yes. I could have it set up that only people that have paid me can do this. And if you haven't paid me, you have to come see me to register. If I'm doing online registration for a Saturday tournament, I usually open it up at like 6 in the morning. And then I will close it up at whatever time I'm ready to start hitting the schematics. And this just lets coaches come in and they can register if they don't have any changes, if they don't need me to do anything. They can simply get online on tabroom.com, click yes, we're all here. I promise everybody's ready to go and we'll be good. Go ahead, Rose.
I have a question about this. With asynchronous judging during the week, how will this work?
I don't think it will. That was about to be my next conversation.
Okay, all right.
I love online registration, but with asynchronous, I don't know how it works because I think I set mine up that I still had like online registration that was open till, I don't know. There's no reason to do it. If you leave, we talked earlier about the setting where people can do judge changes and name changes right up to the moment the tournament starts. If you leave that setting that way, this sort of becomes irrelevant because you don't need people to check in. They just make their changes and you trust that it's right. And then when they come to you at 8:05 with their list of changes, you can really let them have it because you gave them every opportunity to fix it themselves. Not that I've ever done that. There is a place if you want to add notes. So when somebody does, if you do decide to do on-site registration and there's some specific message you want them to know that day, you can set it up where that's delivered automatically. If you've set up a tournament before and you're ready to clone a tournament now and you forgot to do it the first time, this copy settings would be where you could come in and you could clone the settings of another tournament, and it would copy the setup and the events and the judge categories from a previous tournament. Okay. If you've already set it up and you click this, it's going to overwrite anything you've done already with this new information. So be careful about that. The question about dates came up just a second ago, and the place that you fix that is the next tab over to the right. I'm sorry. Are there any other questions about this page before I go talk about dates? Cool. This dates tab is where you can fix things. This page is a magical page. Earlier we were talking about, hey, I've got too many entries. A coach and I were talking, I've got too many entries for my tournament. I want to close it off. I don't want anybody else to register. Cool. Just go in here and change the date that registration opens to a week from now, and it will disappear from the public view until that time. Okay. We set most of this up when you set up your tournament, but this is a good place to double check when it starts, when it ends, when you want registration to open, new entries, script info and uploads. We didn't talk about that setting. If you're doing asynchronous, this is going to be important because this is probably going to be like Tabroom gives you the ability to ask schools to enter their competitors' piece information, where typically they would show up on Saturday and they write that information on the ballot. Now, when they register for the tournament, they're going to be putting that information in their registration. You can determine what information you want to require, but whatever you require will show up on the ballot for the judge. So if you require the name of the piece and the author, that will show up. If you're doing oration and you want to require a works cited page, you could require a works cited page. You have the ability to control. So that would be when you want the script information and uploads. It's obviously got to be before the asynchronous events start. Fees and obligations freeze. So for me this year, my asynchronous competition starts on Tuesday. So my fees and all my entries are due by Monday at 5. My fees and obligation freeze at Monday at 5. Okay. You can still drop people, but the invoice isn't going to change. Like the computer's going to do all that. My judge entries are due Monday at 5 because of what we talked about earlier. Like I need judges that can watch the preliminary asynchronous round. So I've got to have those judges in the computer from schools before then. My drops and name changes are due before the asynchronous part of the tournament.
Hey, Mike.
And then there's nuisance fines. Yeah, what's up, John?
So say like, because I'm trying to like gather my round between asynchronous and synchronous. You said for check-in, you did like a certain date. Now, is that check-in date like for the asynchronous as well, or is that just for the synchronous part of the?
Like when we were looking over here at the online check-in a second ago, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that was what I was asking about.
This would be a overarching, like, when do you want it to show up for the tournament completely? So
like if we started asynchronous, say on that Tuesday, that would be when it would be.
Yeah. And again, I think that you're really creating an extra step that you don't need in a world where you're allowing, I mean, you're going to know at 5 o'clock on Monday who hasn't put entry names and doesn't have video links in. And the reason that like my tournament starts Tuesday, because between 5 o'clock on Monday when registration closes and Tuesday morning, I want to go through and check, and I want to try to contact as many coaches as I can to, if they have TBDs. I'm going to try to have a team of my assistant coaches where we're going to go through and we're going to click on the links and try to watch a couple seconds of each video just to make sure that it plays and that there's sound. So you got to figure out how much time you need to buy to do that. And then like my plan is on Tuesday, I will open up preliminary rounds from Tuesday till Thursday at 5 o'clock. And I will assign each of my judges 3 rounds that they need to watch during that time. And
so
then
Mike, this is probably not a conversation for now. I don't know, but
yeah.
when we're ending a tournament, where do we put our videos? I have no idea where those go.
I'm going to show you where that is. You're going to upload you're not going to have to upload a video or send a video or deal with that file. You're just going to put a link to their video in Tabroom with your registration. Tabroom doesn't care what kind of link you use. A lot of people have been talking about like, it's got to be a YouTube, a private channel. If that's what your school does, that's fine. It could also be a link to a Google Drive, like a MP4 and a Google Drive. We've found that cell phones have the best camera, often better than computers. So like my kids have Google Drive on their phone. They're going to record on their cell phones, upload it to the Google Drive on their phone, and they can share the link with me. And then I put it in there. You could do a YouTube channel if you wanted to. You just have to make sure the video settings. Dropbox would work.
So you're going to show us where we put that link at?
For sure.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, before you go on, I'm sorry, and I probably missed it. So enable online registration system, we hit yes. So online registration starts, is that for our asynchronous or is that for our synchronous?
It would be for everything. This would be like the registration. And this is where this year gets weird with the synchronous. And so before this year, it was awesome because we only had synchronous, which means I didn't do a registration table anymore. I just set this as my tournament starts on Friday because I do debate events. So Friday, 8 a.m. Once the coach has seen their kids and anytime during the day, they could register right up till the tournament started. The asynchronous thing makes it weird. We talked about dates. So make sure we didn't miss anything there. No. Okay, access. This is where you can give access to other people to help you run your tournament, set your tournament up. For example, if Wes Rice wants help setting his tournament up this year, he says, Mike, can you help me? I'll be like, sure, just add me as an administrator on your tournament, and then I can go from my computer and I can see what's going on. All you have to do to add somebody is add their tabroom.com email address. So when it comes time for the tournament, if you and your assistants are going to manage it, you would add them through Tabroom. When you add somebody, I'll add Tony Nation. It will ask you what level of access they should get to your tournament. So Tony's a coach of mine. I want him to be able to do anything I can do. I'll make him an administrator. Sometimes I have young assistants that I don't trust. So I could be like, young assistant, you have limited. You are only allowed to tab. You are only allowed to work a certain category and look at certain events. Tabroom lets you set up permissions. Or for students, when I have students helping me and their only job and this was before we had online ballots, their only job was to take the paper ballot and type it into the computer. They only got entry access. They couldn't see anything except entering their ballots. I'll give Tony admin access.
Mike, if I do want to add you, what's your email address?
mharris4@usd259.net. .com. .net.
Cool.
All right. Last 3 tabs on here, not a lot of use for us. I'll just talk about them real quick. Messages. This one could be. This is where you can, this one is important. You need to put like your school address. So on your invoice, if you don't want to put your school, Wichita East, 2301 East Douglas. If there's a message that you want to appear on the invoices, you could put it there. Message appearing on the front page of registration. This is like when a person registers for your tournament, this would pop up on the first screen. Disclaimers. If you're using a wait list, if there's a specific message you want people to get when they get pulled off the wait list, if there's a message you want delivered when people put Congress, Tab Room allows you to customize. I don't use all of these, and I'll be honest with you. When I started setting up tournaments, I made sure I had the address and that was it. I just needed the bare minimum to function. As you go on and you use this more often, you can start adding what you want. Housing. We don't typically do hotels or housing in Kansas for tournaments, so we don't mess with that. Notes. This would be a place where you can just like create a notepad for yourself so that you could come back after the tournament and be like, here are all the things that popped up in the tournament that I want to consider for next year. And this is literally just a notepad for you that's preserved on here that you can come back to. All right.
So the disclaimer here, would that include our tournament handbook, or would that be kind of in the invitation section? So say, if we're, like doing a partial in-person tournament, all competitors must wear face masks at all times, including during performances. Is the disclaimer where that would go? Probably.
That would be, I would say put it in both places, but yes, that would definitely be the type of thing that you would want to put there. Be like, this is an in-person tournament, but all,
Thank you.
all CASHA, whatever regulations will be followed. I mean, any kind of simple disclaimer like that gives you as the coach an ability to go back if somebody's messing around and say, look, you knew about this from the second you hit register from my tournament. In fact, the first thing you saw when you registered was that this is the way that it was going to be. Let's not fight now about it.
So do they have to wear masks for videos?
If they are in a school building and we're recording with each other, in theory, yes.
If
in my
they're,
building,
like-
in USD 259, absolutely. If they were in my building at any time, they could not take their mask off, even to record a video or participate.
Okay.
But that's just me. I'm in a weird place. I haven't seen a kid since March. I will say there's one other set of things here on the messages that we didn't talk about that could be important to you in your building. Maybe it's something to talk to your admin about. Some schools this year have, because we're doing online events and their schools are requiring them to get a waiver signed by competitors acknowledging that this tournament's going to be hosted in an online forum. If your school required some sort of form be filled out, this is where you could upload a template for that so they could do that. The school form would be like if you wanted a principal signature, a competitor form would be like a student waiver sign off. Okay, let's go look at rules and results real quickly. I just kind of want to talk to you about, this is how you set up how your tournament will be tabbed. And everything that we're talking about here for the most part is really customizable the way that you want it to be. But I want to definitely show you how to change it and what you'll see in here. On the right side, Tab Room comes set up with a bunch of pre-formulated tie breaks. These are what the NSDA has decided they think tie breaks should look like. You have the ability to go customize these and make them whatever you want. The only reason Keisha's doing their tournament using Tab Room is because we were able to demonstrate to Keisha we can make the computer follow the Keisha manual exactly the way that it does. And we've run it enough that we can show you when a tournament's happening exactly where the computer is doing the same thing that we would be doing on the table with the old-fashioned cards. Same with like national qualifying tournaments. Before we ever used Tab Room, we had to demonstrate that it worked right. You can see for speech, and speech would be your speech theater, you've got prelims at the bottom, and then, you know, good old fashioned cumulative or cutthroat. What kind of tournament do you want to run? Okay, and you can choose. I'm going to start with speech prelims just to talk. You can see there's a guide at the bottom that tells you exactly what they all mean. So this is speech prelims. You could name this whatever you wanted. Advance equal entries from each section. This would be like if you set up a tournament and you wanted to advance 3 entries from every one of the sections to create an elim, you could do that. This no shows or forfeits placed last. This would be like if somebody, I don't know, this is sort of a weird situation. If like somebody didn't show up for round 1 and got a 5 because there were only 5 people in the round and then got a 1-1. If I had this clicked and they had been a no-show round 1, it wouldn't let them break. It would just rank them down. No, even though you still did well enough, the other 2 were not. Again, those are settings that you have to decide. I have no idea what the David Abel, what does 3 times composite ties get middle rank California mean?
Well, I don't know about the California part, but if there's a 3-way tie, that setting would create the middle rank would be what every one of the 3 competitors get. So if there's a 3-way tie for second in the round, 2, 3, 4, middle rank would be 3, so they'd all get 3s.
So in a situation where there were judge panels and when you added all of the judge scores up, it created a 3-way tie like this. And again, we probably won't play with this. Now, important language and vernacular to understand. Ranks mean ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Points mean quality points. Oftentimes people get confused at the first. We sometimes, especially young coaches, use these terms interchangeably. But it will make a big difference in setting up your tie break. So the way that Tab Room sets things up is ranks from prelim rounds truncated to the smallest section. So if you had a section of 4 and 2 sections of a 5, truncated to smallest section would be nobody gets a 5. You would give 4s at the end. You don't have to truncate it. Reciprocal ranks from prelim rounds, truncated. The reciprocals is what? 1 divided by the rank. I don't know. Here, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to trash that. I don't think anybody's using reciprocals for their home tournament. If you are, we can talk about that later. They've got points would be their next one. So I don't like the ranked truncated. I'm going to erase that. Now it's only left me, because I got rid of the crap that I don't like, it's just left me with the 3rd tie break. Down here, I can add new tiebreakers. So I want to start with my first tie break is going to be ranks, and that's going to be priority number 1. I'm not going to truncate the ranks. That's the setting that was clicked by them. I'm not using composite ranks. I'm not dropping any scores. I'm not multiplying any scores. And when I do the tiebreakers, I want to use their ranks from, you can choose. I usually do rounds marked as prelims. Okay, and that's going to, any round that I tell the computer is a preliminary round, it's going to, the first thing the computer is going to do is add up the ranks. Create new tiebreak. Okay, and now you can see tiebreak number 1, ranks from prelim rounds. I want points to be my second tiebreak. So I'll go over here, and anytime you see this box with a pencil in it, that's the edit. That's the edit button. And so it shows edit. I want to make this priority number 2. I'll just change that and hit save. So tie breaks, first tie break is rank, second tie break is points. What's our third tie break? Somebody give me a third tie break. Anybody?
Quality points?
That would be the one that we have as the points already.
Is it
Judge-
reciprocals or most ones?
Differentials.
Or?
Reciprocals, maybe?
It could be any of those things. And what you can see here is it says add new tiebreaker. It gives you the option.
Do we know what it is for Keisha?
Somebody want to look up what the third tiebreak for Keisha is? I think it's the number of ones.
Yeah, but are you talking about prelims here?
Yeah.
I think you take the tie to the you take the tie in. You don't break a tie. Like if it's for you
Right.
just take 7 into prelims.
So there you go. For elims, I do, I'm cumulative. I'll go to my cumulative speech elims. This has got a whole lot more stuff set up in it already. So the way they have it set up right now is the computer would first look at only their ranks for elims, and then it would look at the ranks from their prelims, except it would get rid of the worst rank in the prelim because they assume some judge just gives people bad scores, and then they would do reciprocal. I'm just going to trash all this, and we'll start from scratch. And it's going to take me a second to hit the trash can 17 times. You will notice on here, by the way, you can set 2 tie breaks as the same priority, and it would do both of them simultaneously. Sorry that this is taking time. One of the things to consider before you set these tie breaks up is obviously, are you going to have panels in finals or just one judge? Because that will make a difference in how you set things up. Okay.
Now, for most forensics tournaments, it's going to be speech prelims and then speech elims cumulative most times, right?
Right. I think most of the tournaments that I've hosted, except for a couple, are usually cumulative. So usually, if my memory serves me right, it's usually first priority is ranks from all rounds, which would be the preliminary rounds plus the elim rounds too. The second one for me would be points from all rounds. And then this is where you kind of have to figure out what your invitation says or what is best for you.
Isn't Keisha supposed to be the second one judge preference from finals?
Is it? Okay, so we'll trash points, and that's easy enough. Judge pref. Tiebreak number 2, use scores from rounds marked final, and that will only look at the judge preference from the final round. What's third, Wes?
That's, I think.
What's that?
I think that's all points.
Okay. So
Yeah.
next would be points from all rounds. Well, you wouldn't need points from all rounds because if you have a 3-judge panel, judge prefs would figure out your tiebreak in all situations, so it wouldn't matter.
So you just need the first 2.
Yep. If you didn't have a panel for finals, then you would have to go to a different metric instead.
Unless you had a 3-way tie.
True. And that's where, okay, so if you have a 3-way tie, points from all rounds would then break the 3-way tie. You're still tied after that. Figure out what you want to do. All right, now I'm going to look at prelims. You know, you could get creative at that point. If you host debate events, you could set your prelims, your debate events up here too. I'm not going to talk about Congress and debate events tonight because I don't think this is the crowd that if you needs that help specifically. If that's something you want help with, just holler at me and I'll try to walk you through that. Sweepstakes is your next tab. Again, this is going to be a very personal thing for your tournament. The first time you do this, you're going to have to create a new set. I'll call this Ad Astra Forensics. And when I create that new sweep set, it's going to ask me to set it up, and it's going to ask me what I want to consider. So the entries counted across all events. This is where I say, like for my tournament, I count 20 entries across all events. You might be 16, you might be 15, you might be 12. It depends on your tournament and how that works. The number of entries counted per event is, Wichita East is notorious for putting 18 people in United States extemporaneous. I'm not counting more than 2 of those towards your sweepstakes. Okay. You can close out finals. You're only getting two points. Number of events to count. This would be, we don't usually use this setting in Kansas, but you could limit the number of events you counted and only count like 5 events towards them. Some schools in Kansas do use the wild cards where they're like, we'll give every school a wild card beyond their limit. So 2 entries per event, plus the computer will take a wild card and grab the next best in one of them. I've never used multiply the rule set scores. I don't do multiply the number of students per entry to create it.
My quick question.
Yeah.
So like the number of events to count, so that would be like if we're doing the traditional poetry, prose, all of that, then you would go like 10 because a lot of us don't do poi out here. Would that be correct?
Kind of, except the only problem is the computer wouldn't recognize the difference between poi and any other event, and it would just take your entries from the best 10 of those 11 events.
Okay, so that was my question too. So like normally, let's say I let people have 20 entries total, but we only count the top 12 per round. I would put 12 in that box.
No, you'd put 12 in the entries counted across all.
Right, right. And then, but then I would put 10. Sorry, I have it pulled up here. Let me look at it. So entries counted across all events. That's where I would put
12.
And then number of events to count, because I have 10 events, I would put
I would
10.
say nothing, Kim.
Nothing.
You wouldn't
Okay.
want anything in that box. So me,
Sorry.
like I'm hosting league.
Mhm.
We will have 20 events, and we'll count 18, I believe. But it won't necessarily be the top 18, but I'll put 20 in there, but I won't mark number of events to count in this section is what I'm gathering.
Right.
So it doesn't accidentally exclude something you don't want it to.
Right. And down here at the bottom, Kim, where it says scope, this is where you can choose like specific events to add or to limit. So it says like events to count all, you can add all, or we haven't created any events. That's why once you've created events, it will let you choose all of them or pick the individual ones that you want to add. So for example, if you don't want poi to count towards sweepstakes because you're only offering it to do a service to other people and it's not something you want to affect the overall thing, you could just not count poi towards sweepstakes. You would just not add it there. Once you've added your rounds to the tournament, like when I create my schedule, I'll have round 1, round 2, round 3, and finals. I will exclude finals from sweepstakes, or some tournaments get wild and they run sweepstakes all the way through finals, and it depends on how the finals finish. So if you wanted to exclude finals, you could simply go here and exclude finals. If you wanted to run everything, you can.
Understood.
I will say that it's been kind of fun. I've seen some tournaments in Kansas where they put the sweeps results in a spreadsheet that they show in the tab room to coaches. and that gets updated live as they're entering the final round scores, and it kind of creates a moving leaderboard, which I get all competitive.
That's what we do out here.
I love it. The other thing you have to do is you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to add some rules. Like, you've told them now what events you want to do and how you want to do it. Now you need to tell it how to count. These different sections are for different events. So if you go down to ranks, because that's how we assess forensics. Usually we give kids points based on ranks. For example, if they get a 1, they get 9 points. And for prelims, and I'll add that rule. If they get a, come on, computer. Oh, I added it twice. Okay. If they get a 2, they get 8 points. And you can go through, if they get a 3, they get 7 points. If they get a 4, they get 6 points. It depends. I guess I did that wrong. 1 is 8, 2 is 7, 3 is 6, 4 is 5, 5 is 4. And that creates the point system that we typically use for Kansas. And if you go in here, you can see as you add rules, if you click on rules, it'll show you what you've added. I can tell I already messed one up because I put 8 points for all rounds, but my sweepstakes doesn't include finals. So I would need to go and fix that. I just go back, add rules. 2 gets you 7, and that is prelim. And this is where it just takes time the first time you set your tournament, because you have to go in there and do each one of those rules and set them up. And I'm not going to do that right now, but you can see how it goes. If you need help with that, the hardest part is sometimes just finding that screen to do that in. Points and bids, I don't think matter to anybody. If a coach ever says, hey, I attended your tournament and I want NDCA points, this would be where you could do that. But this is all for debate stuff. So just don't worry about points and bids. Any questions? That's a lot of stuff. Any questions about the rules and results?
Yes. Can elim rounds effectively be your finals if you're not holding any semis?
Say that one more time. I think I know the answer.
Okay, so you've got your prelim round rules set up. Are your, like, if you create a rule for an elim round, is that essentially the same as finals if you're not holding any semis or anything?
Yep.
That elim round is kind of just a, I don't know, just a phrase for people who aren't going to be doing semis or quarters.
Correct. And when you set up your rounds, you have to tell the computer what type of round it is, so it knows it, so it pulls the right tie break. So if you only
for me, I have to name it finals or name it elim.
Right. And that's
So
going to
it
be, we can
catches
talk
it.
about naming conventions. Some people are just like round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, and they label round 4 finals. Some people call it finals. You can abbreviate. Well, I'll show you where all that is in a second. Okay. The reason we're going in order, I'm going back up to the settings and you can see we're going in order. Tab Room makes you go in order when you set your tournament up, so that before you can set up any events, you've got to set up a judge category or judge categories. And the reason why is when you set your events up, you have to tell it what judges it's going to use. So the first time that you go in here, you have to create a new judge category. In the future, you'll clone this. Now, I'm going to step back from Tab Room for a second, and I'll just challenge you to conceptualize the best way that you can do this. It really depends on how much you want to manage your judge pool and how much work you want to do. Tabroom will give you the ability to, you could create a speech pool and a theater pool. You could create a category, you could create a speech category and a theater category. You could create a category of judges for each event, which would be hectic. Don't do that. Or you could just have like a single category and be like forensics judges. And I like simplicity. So for the purposes of what I do, I usually just like, I'll do a forensics category, or I host debate on Friday night. So I might do like a debate category and a forensics category and have 2 different judge pools. In this instance, I'm just going to call this forensics. Now, once you name it, go ahead and save it, because Tabroom, for some reason, this is like one of the only screens that's weird, and you've got to save it. And once you save it, you then get all these options available. I don't know why it glitches. There's some code error somewhere. All right. So now I'm in my judge category, and you can see once I make it, there's a whole bunch of tabs at the top, and we're going to work our way through these tabs. Okay. The registration tab is what the school, when they register, this is asking you how you want this set up for them. So the first thing I would tell you is that Tabroom's default is to code judges by numbers, which I think makes things personally more complicated. I want to see names. If you don't click yes here, you'll never see a name for a judge. You'll just see numbers, and you'll have to decode it. And it's not a game that I like to play at tournaments because I don't know why. If you don't want your judges, if you want to keep your judges anonymous, that's fine. You would just use codes, and you would tell them, the computer, where you want it to start on this next line. I publish the list of judges online for my tournament. That's up to you if you want to do that. I do that more so schools can see what judges other schools are bringing. If you're doing an online tournament and you're doing online ballots, you have to click require judges to have linked accounts, because that's how they get their ballots. I'm old fashioned. I want the judge's phone number as the tournament host, because I want the ability to get a hold of a judge when they disappear out of a Zoom room and they haven't submitted their ballot. I need to know how I can find that person, get a hold of them. Tabroom now gives you the ability to ask a judge, like, what time are you leaving? Like, what is the absolute time? I don't use this. I'm kind of maniacal about keeping track of my judges separately. But if you wanted to, you could ask for departure times. I would suggest you give things an abbreviation, even if it's just like FOR. If it asks you to give an abbreviation, there's going to be a space on Tabroom where that abbreviation would show up. And for example, if you don't put an abbreviation on the event, it won't show up on the schematic. So always try to fill in those tabs. Show judge contact on registration. This would be like on a paper registration sheet where you're checking somebody in, it would have all their contacts. So I don't do that. I don't ask judge qualifications or histories. I will say this, every time your judges in Tabroom keeps a record. So you can go back and look at a judge and see if they've judged before, what tournaments they've judged at, what events they've judged at before. If you want to sign somebody up to judge for you, and that judge can judge your school because they don't really have an affiliation, that's usually helpful for the host to know. So I like to say yes. When schools register, if they have a neutral judge, they can definitely tell me that that judge is neutral, and the computer will assign it to judge rooms with their kids. Allow judge double entry in other categories. This would be if you set up multiple judge categories, it would allow a coach to say, yes, this judge is judging in Congress category and also is going to be my judge in the speech category. And ask to specify an alternate judge categories if you have multiple categories and you let the judge choose, and then you said, I'm going to let you choose, but I need you to specify a second choice just in case. It would allow the judge to say, I want to judge speech, but debate is my second choice. Burden method below, if you're going to require your schools to bring judges, this is where you would tell them how many judges they need to bring. Typically for forensics tournaments, what I'm seeing is schools are requiring one judge for every 5 to 6 entries during prelims. If there is no community pool, I still think that you can recruit a community pool and do the traditional thing pretty easily if you do some judge training and you work with your judges in advance. But so if you wanted one judge for every 6 entries, you would just put 6 entries per judge owed. Or if you wanted to make it a round burden, for every entry, you owe me 2 rounds of judging. For every entry, you owe me 3, you know, whatever. That typically is more of a debate thing. Like for every entry, you owe me 3 rounds of judging in a 6-round tournament. The alter burden, if you say yes here, this would mean like even if you drop, your judge is still required. Typically, we don't do that to people. If somebody's sick, we're not going to punish you. Judge bonds, some national tournaments charge a judge bond, or they charge a fee for judges if they offer like meals during the tournament, and this would be where you would put that information. Again, make sure you hit save on every page.
So Mike, I have another question for you. So looking at, I normally for my tournament ask each school, because usually I have a pretty big community pool. But I usually ask each school to just bring one judge for the entire day. So what do I put for that? Under burden method, I guess.
How many entries do you allow each school?
20. So put 20. So not 20, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just misreading this and I'm making it harder than I need to.
You're not actually, and I think that what you bring up is a really important. There's a couple of places where tab room in Kansas don't mesh up well, and this is one of them. You don't really have any other way to tell the computer to do this, so you've got some choices. I would leave it blank, and I would tell, like, this is me, especially if it's a smaller tournament. I'm just going to tell my coaches, like, I need a judge from you. Tab room's not going to flag you and tell you that you can't enter, but I'm going to be keeping track, and I need a judge from you. And you can do it that way.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, I really think that that's the easiest thing to do.
Did you just put one there if they even register? Because like out here, I've got schools that'll bring 2 kids. If I put you bring 6 kids in there, if they only bring 2, then they don't have to bring a judge. Where out here, if you register and you come to my meet, even if you bring 1 kid, you have to bring a judge. So could you put 1 there?
Tab room would do that. Tab room would actually follow your lead there. Like if I brought 2 entries to your tournament and I said that you owe a judge for every 6 entries, it's still going to require me to bring a judge because it's up to 6. I need a judge for everything up to 6 entries.
Makes sense.
Okay, by entries, you don't mean people, you mean individual
events.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I see in the alter burden section, it says minimum judges owed if a school has entries. So if you're requiring judges like just 1 total or 2 total, that'll take care of that. Yeah.
Amen. Yep. You got it. And there's also right underneath that, there's a maximum a school can owe. So if you're nice enough to let me bring 50 entries to your tournament, but you're not going to make me bring 9 judges. We'll let you have 50 with just 6 judges. And good catch there, Alyssa, too. Did you notice that alter burden screen, after I hit saved, it added some new selections there? Sometimes that happens. So I'm glad that you caught that because that wasn't there a second ago. Okay. Hired judges. I'm going to go off on a rant for about 30 seconds. All these national school, all these college kids and national programs, they're used to getting paid to judge these tournaments. So this year when everything went virtual, a whole bunch of college kids that did national circuit competition in high school, they thought that every tournament paid judges. And so all year, these college kids have been signing up to judge all these tournaments because they thought they were going to get a paycheck from schools. And it was really weird when like for my Tuesday after school tournament, I had 75 college kids signed up to judge because I clicked the wrong setting here. And I had to politely explain to them that like, yo, we're a nonprofit and we don't pay judges for 2-round after school novice debate tournaments. In fact, we punish our 4th-year students who aren't performing well by making them watch these rounds. So be careful with these. My recommendation is don't play with hired judges. Don't enable public judge signups. Just don't do it. Now, I thought the public judge signups would be cool because this would allow my community members to come and sign up to judge without me having to keep track of them. It also allows anybody in the public to sign up, which leads to a whole bunch of people thinking they're going to get paid. So just don't do that. I'll show you how to create a community pool without having people sign up. It's a little more work, but it's worth you not having to deal with the problem. Okay, ignore the hiring screen. Don't mess with it. You might get tempted to play with the judge exchange. This would be like, Kim's got more judges than she needs and Alyssa doesn't have enough. So the computer will allow you to trade back and forth. I tried to get cute this year. It just, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. If you can figure out how to make it work, tell me how to do it. Okay, tabbing. This is going to be the screen where you're telling the computer how to schedule and how to set up these judges and to put them into the computer. Typically, we don't prevent back-to-back rounds. We let our judges judge every round in Kansas. We don't typically let judges judge the same event over and over, except there is the option. You could let the judge judge the same event in elims that they judged in prelims. You could make elims clean. I'll show you how to do that. Do not let judge pools override category. We're not going to, unless you're doing a bunch of judge categories, this setting won't bother you. I don't even know how it works. Allow panels with the same school judges. This is an important setting. I try to keep my finals panels where I don't have multiple people from the same school judging the same event at the same time. I know that I've been in a situation where I've been in a panel where I'm expected to like judge the final round of state LD, and it's me and my two assistant coaches, and I always just kind of feel like that's a little bit too much power for one school to have. That said, sometimes you get into elims and you're a little tight on judges and you need to let 2 judges for the same school. I usually start the tournament with this as a no, but if it comes time for finals and I'm short on judges, I can go back here and I can click this little setting and it will allow me to pool things differently. Randomized judge assignments. This is a new setting for this year. I can't tell you exactly what it does. I think what it does is Tabroom is doing some things where it looks at the diversity of judges and it tries to randomize things. So it spreads out judges that are diverse. So judges of color, or it spreads out female judges, and it makes sure that it doesn't concentrate groups of people in the same area. We typically don't do this diversity tracking thing in Kansas, but I guess if you wanted to, show diversity opt-in on prefs. We don't do judge prefs in Kansas typically, where you get to rank your judges before the tournament, so you get the judges you want. There is the ability to do a training online ballot, and I'm going to be honest with you. I hope somebody learns how to do that this semester. I haven't touched it. I don't know how it works. I say that confidently that I haven't needed to test it, and I haven't had any judges so far that haven't been able to figure out their ballots with a little bit of the training stuff. So that's why I haven't used it. If you wanted to read through this, I think you can set up a training ballot that opens up at a certain time. So if you had a judges training, you could set it up so all of your judges would see that ballot during the judges training. I just haven't played with that. Tabulation settings, we don't have to mess with unless you're doing an in-person tournament. An in-person tournament where you're getting paper ballots, when it says ballot hand entry, enter twice. The second must match means that I start with the ballot, I enter it, then I hand it to a second person who enters it independently of me. And if they don't match, start over from scratch, okay? That's a really good way to make sure that there's no mistakes in your tab room. You put two kids next to each other and they do that. You can do a visual scan with confirmation where one person enters it and then it pops up a screen that says, "Are you sure?" And you can visually double check it. Or if you're like me, you just live dangerously and you hope for the best and you enter at one time and it doesn't ask you anything. I think for me, if it's me and my assistants, we're going to live dangerously. If it's me and my district committee or my state tab staff, we might live dangerously. Or maybe if it's the Acacia tab staff, we're not. Again, this only matters for in-person paper ballots being manually entered in the computer. Within that tabulation setting, it asks you how you want the ballots displayed. Show entry names. I told you before, tab room defaults to codes. And if you chose to use codes, you could click this and it would pop a name up here for the first time. The second one would arrange it by codes. This is all just about how it shows this kids. Now, ballot options is important for you because this is going to be what shows up on the ballots for your judges. I list my entry names first and last. I don't know, I'm old school. I like kids introducing themselves first and last names. I think it's important for them to learn how to do that. For IE, I definitely put a place for the title of their piece or where, where they can, where the question can be put. There's a space for times. I'm not going to get into the debate about whether how timekeepers and forensics work. But if you want a place for your judges to put time, there is a spot for that on the ballot. I think that freaks people out. Do you want school codes? That's if you're using codes. If you're not using school codes, that's really irrelevant. I use school names. You could do both. You could set up tab room where the school code is the school name and it would show the school name. And if it was the school code was the name, it would show the school name right next to the school name. And it would be like Wichita East, Wichita East. For IE, I do like to list the speaker order. I think it's something to consider, especially in a world like if you're doing synchronous, extemp, and impromptu and IDA, where in the past it's been like an impromptu free-for-all, might have to consider having people draw an order because that crush of 8 kids in the last half hour of an impromptu round is going to be really hard to deal with in an online setting. So consideration, making them speak in order. Tab room will put a star next to somebody's name if they are double entered. But if you're doing asynchronous speech theater events and you're only doing synchronous draw events, you really don't have to worry about kids like being double entered and not being able to perform in the order unless they're entered in both impromptu and extemp. And that's real easy to fix. You just put a line on your invitation that says, we don't allow you to enter in 2 draw events. That's a tough one for me. I like impromptu and I've been wrestling really hard with, is it worth me dealing with double entries in a virtual world to let 8 kids do impromptu that are also doing extemp? You all kind of have to figure out what's best for you. Space for judge signature. In a paper ballot world, this would all be printed out, so it would just create a space for the judge to sign it. I like that. In an online world, that won't matter. I do think that ask judge for phone numbers on the ballot. If your registration was set up where it requires it, this won't be a big deal. If your registration doesn't require it, on a paper ballot, this would literally put a spot where they would write their phone number. This has saved my butt in an in-person tournament on any number of occasions when I needed to get a hold of a judge. And I can just go, thank God I've got that ballot. Okay. There's a lot of buttons on those screens. I hope that most of them are fairly intuitive. Any questions about any of that? I'm kind of looking through.
Mike, so
yeah,
if you're creating like the ballot options and stuff, does it actually create a digital ballot? Like, I guess I'm missing that part.
Yeah. So the judge is going to get a digital ballot. Like when the round gets paired and you assign a judge to it, when they log into tab room, it's going to show up at the top. It'll say judge assignments and it'll show their room number and the event and the students, and it'll say start round. And when they click start round, it'll take them to a ballot. And whatever you selected here is what's going to show up in terms of information for them.
Oh, okay.
Whatever, by the way, one other thing on the ballot, whatever your tie breaks are set up as is also what will show up. So if you don't put points as a tie break, none of the ballots will have a place to put points in. If you mess that up in round one, it's really hard to add points round two to fix that problem without going back and getting all those judges from round one to add points to their ballot. So it's important that your tie breaks are set up correctly so that the information on the ballot is correct. It's more of a debate problem because some places are focused on ranks and some are focused on points. They don't necessarily always get used together. Good questions. All right, ratings tab. Ignore it. Ignore it. This is, you could do it for forensics, but this is more of a debate. This is where the debaters get to rank their judges before the tournament, and the computer looks at everybody's ranks and assigns judges that are mutually preferred by both team debating, and we don't play that game much here. Shifts. I don't like this page. I would recommend you don't use it. There's a thing at the bottom that says a piece of advice. I would look at it. This is supposed to be designed so you could put like different shifts for each round, and then your judges could put what shifts they're not available for. But because it asks them what they're not available for, typically it gets messed up at registration and coaches think this shows what is available, and it's just a bad system. It creates problem. What's easier is if you go to the pools tab. Oh, I have to set up a site location first. I thought I did that. Add Astra debate hall, add site. Okay. See, I got to a place where tab room's like, you can't go there because you haven't done something right. Now I got to get back to where I was. Settings, judges. I went to go do pools and it told me I can't make judge pools because I didn't have a room set up. Now that I got room set up, I can create pools. I like to create a judge pool for each round. Okay. The category is forensics. The pool, I create a pool for round one, round two, round three, and finals. Tab room allows me to manually only put the judges available for those rounds into that pool. So when tab room does the pairing, it only uses the judges that are there for that round. If you set this up, I publish the pools, so it shows people. If you click registrants, assign judges to pool, in theory, when a school registers for your tournament, they can pick what rounds their judges are available for. I'm going to tell you the truth of the matter is you've got to go back and double check that. Tab room messes it up almost every time. Okay. Send an email to all of your schools before the tournament a couple days and say, please go put notes in your judges that tell me what rounds they're available, and plan on the night before your tournament going through and manually making sure that all of the pools are set up the right way. It's a heck of a lot less time than it used to be doing this by hand, but this might be the most labor intensive thing the day before the tournament, the night before the tournament. I do not let registrants assign judges to pools by events. It would let you, you could have it set up where when I sign my judge up, I could be like, Andrew Halverson is going to judge, and I only want him to judge HI. That's typically more control than I can deal with. Save changes. Round two, publish.
What's the difference between standby and publish in the program?
Yeah, the standby, my understanding is like this would be if you wanted to create a pool of judges that were just going to be on hold that wouldn't be assigned to a round, you could say this is my standby pool. And you can see I've done this before, so it automatically lets me fill these in pretty quick. make sure your pool names match your round names. So when you create a pool here, finals, if it's finals, or round 4, whatever you're going to name it, it pays to think about how you're naming things and naming them the same way. And I'll just add round 4 finals. If you want to put a minimum, like a judge has to judge a certain number of rounds, you could put that in. I've never used this. I will say I did put in my invitation this year, and if you host asynchronously, something to think about. My judging requirement is I need 1 judge for every 6 entries for asynchronous rounds who can be available Tuesday through Thursday at their convenience to judge. I need 1 judge per 2 entries for debate events. I need 1 judge for, like, you got to think of how you need your judges set up.
Mike, where do I go to check what my rounds are named?
We haven't set them up yet, so I'll show you that in just 1 second. It's in the schedule.
Okay.
Setting schedule.
Thank you.
The last 2 tabs are real quick, and we're going to get to that schedule right next. Wes is right where we're going. Messages, just like on your tournament settings, you had messages. These are messages that would be available to your judges or to your schools about judging. So if you have a specific judge policy, if you could put it there. Some schools have considered putting languages for here that's like, please make sure your judges know in a virtual world not to place comments on the ballot about the background or the home situation. Don't judge students based on the living conditions in the room that this would be the place that you could put information like that. And then lastly is fake judges, because this is a test tournament. Once you get everything set up, you might want to play with, like, how do I schedule around and put judges? Because it's a test tournament, you can go in and you can create fake judges, so that when you go and put your pools together, you can see how that all functions. And I'm not going to do that right now. But that is an options. Okay. We're literally, we've gone through the hardest part. I still think we're going to be done real close to 9 o'clock because the next stuff is so intuitive. Now we're to our events. And it's a little bit time consuming, but I think all of this would make sense to you. The first time you do this, you have to add all of your events. And you just have to name them, put the entry fee for that event, how many competitors. And once you've done one, you can clone the first one, all the settings from the first one into all the other ones. So you can create categories of events that are alike and clone them real easy. So I'll just start oration. Short abbreviation, OO for me. Something to think about in terms of naming events or abbreviations. I played with synchronous events are like S dash or asynchronous A dash. Some people are, you could do speech theater. If you have a novice division at a tournament, you could do an N dash for novice events. Oration's a 1 competitor event, so the minimum number of competitors is 1 and the maximum number of competitors is 2. For your duo events, the minimum needs to be 2 and the maximum needs to be 2. If you don't set that up right, like if you set up duo and you just have 1 here, the school when they register will only be able to put 1 name there. It won't give them a spot to enter the second person. We've already set the judge up, the judge categories up, so it shows up there. The judges for this event are going to come from the forensics pool. And this is where we talked a while back about like school codes and how we wanted school codes set up. Now you're going to look at, here's your entry codes for each event. And I think you said earlier you like to do numbers.
School code is a number. Student code is a letter.
What if you flip-flop that? And the only reason I say that is because it doesn't give me the ability to start with a letter here, but it does give me the ability to start with numbers here. So you could do like letter codes for the schools and number codes for the events. And this is sort of where I was going earlier, and I guess I didn't realize the reason I had done it the way I had is like the 100s are US extemp, the 200s are international extemp, the 300s, and I have number codes instead of names. But the number code allows me to real easily be like, what are the 300s? Okay, that's this event, and I can figure out what I'm doing. You can see that there's a lot of options here for you: school code and numeric code, school name and numeric code, school code and entry initials, school code and entry name. I would recommend that you do full. Now, I will say this: if you're doing an online tournament and using codes, get ready to learn to decode fast, because if you're doing synchronous, you're going to have to move people into breakout rooms, which means you're going to have to look at the schematic and those codes and figure out who in that room matches that code. Alyssa, I saw Alyssa's eyes get big when I said that. We've been using names. You could do school code and entry name, and it would fix that problem for you, because the schematic would show their full name, which would hopefully match what they were logged into Zoom as. Event type, speech, congress, debate. If you do speech event, then it'll say what level is it at, open varsity, save it. You can see when I saved it, it gave me a new spot if you're at NSDA school, or if anybody attending your tournament is at NSDA school. It would be nice to just put that event, because that will automatically add points for that NSDA school so they don't have to mess with it. You can come down below, and you could, if you have specific rules for an event, this would be a place where you can put it. So when somebody clicks on the event on the website, it will give a description with any information about it specific to that event. Some examples for this year that I could see is like, if you're doing, extempore impromptu online, you probably have new draw procedures and new ways that that's going to work in a virtual environment. Duo and duet, you're probably going to have to make some decisions about the way that works, and you want to let people know where that goes. This would be a place that you could put that information. You can see on the right side, as you add events, they'll all start listing here. So once, I only have oration now, but as I added events, they would all show up here.
Maximum competitors per entry is for schools. Is that to limit like 3 oration per school?
No, that is how many students are in that event. So that for oration, uno student. For registration is where you're going to look at the settings. We'll talk about the settings that you're looking at, which is that next tab. I will say this.
Best to zero them out then?
What's that?
Would it be best to zero them out or put like 6, or did Keisha move it down to 5?
For this, on this main screen right here?
Yeah, on the add new, well, no, yes, on that main screen. So the minimum competitors per entry, I think they moved it down to like 5, right? Like you have to have 5 for qualifying.
No, this is for the school when they sign up, how many students they would have to add to that event. So if you added 5, they would have to add 5 people to that event. What you're talking about is going to be over here on the sectioning tab that we're going to get to in just a second.
So minimum competitors 0, maximum competitors.
Minimum and maximum should both be 1.
Okay.
Unless it's duo, duet, or one act plays. One act plays, I guess you could do online balloting, and you could say minimum 1, maximum, whatever. Registration. Okay. I haven't figured out exactly conceptually how I want to do this, but event specific deadlines. I think this is where you could put like your deadline for entries for your tournament across the board for everything is Wednesday at 5 o'clock, but in oration, because it's asynchronous, I could set oration deadline as an earlier. You could create event specific deadlines before the tournament deadline. That seemed like a lot of work to me, so I just made all of the deadlines earlier. That's why I did it the way that I did. And it says right at the top, these only work if they're earlier than the tournament wide deadlines. Okay. Registration settings. Now I've got mine set up to start with speaker codes is 100. You could change here what number you wanted to start. Will you allow the same person to enter the same event twice? I don't even know why they ask some of these questions. Like, what part of the country do they do some wacky stuff where you can write 2 00s and compete simultaneously? I do want to publish. I do personally like to publish that web field report, just like judges. I like to show what competitors are signed up in each event. I think it's cool. Now, here's your caps per event. And this is where some people do get frustrated. You don't get to, you can do total number of people in an event, which, you know, I host a big tournament at East and I'm limited on rooms. I've got 110 rooms and I need 112. So I could say, look, impromptu is no more than 80 people. I'll stack 10 people in 8 rooms, but that's it. I'm not going to do that. You could set that here. You can set a per school cap where each school, like I think somebody else really like, you can only bring 4 entries from each school, or each school is only up to 2 entries per event. If you click this next button that says maintain a wait list, you're going to see it adds a whole bunch of options here. The way I set my tournament up, and this is completely discretion, I set my tournament up so when a school enters, everybody gets waitlisted. You can sign up. Rose can sign up for my tournament. She can say, I want 10 entries per event. You don't need to tell me who they are. I'm just going to assume that's fine. They're all going to go on the wait list, and as she adds names and she adds her judges, I will move them off the wait list. And that way it's always right. I do the wait list. I don't know why. I wait list all entries. It was a bigger deal when I was limited by the number of physical rooms I had and the number of physical entries I could allow. And I needed to be choosy. Let's be real. I prioritize schools that let me enter their tournaments when I'm giving extra entries. I've got buddies who let me have extra entries that I give extra entries to. So it's, to me, I just prefer waitlisting and making that choice. Because I do that, I also ask registrants to rank your waitlisted entry. So if Wes Rice decides he needs to bring 6 POIs to my tournament, I want him to tell me what priority I let them in case I can't let all 6 in. That field report that the public sees, if you say yes, include the wait list. If somebody's waitlisted, it won't show up on the website unless you click this button. This button will show everybody that is entered and on the wait list. Allow TBA entries without caps would be like Wes can enter a kid in 8 events and it won't trigger that, hey, you're not allowed to be in more than 2 events at my tournament because they're on the wait list. It would just let them go. For oration, it will ask specific information from the coach if there's like specific event information. I mentioned earlier for like oration, you could ask for a bibliography. You could ask for if it was a theater event, you could ask for the publication information. If you wanted them to turn in their script information. For extemp, speech topics, or impromptu, you could ask them, we don't really do supplemental events in Kansas, but if we did this, you could create supplemental events that would only open up after main events. And then you have the ability, I mean, if you wanted to, for example, if I hosted IDA and my theater guy at East wanted to bring a group of theater people to judge it, I could say that nobody has any obligations for this event because I've got a pool of people that I'm specifically going to have do it. Or you could make adjustments. I'm trying to think, like, I set it up earlier so you need a judge for every 6 entries, but I have one event like Congress and I don't need a judge for every 6 entries. I need a judge for every 12 entries. You could make an adjustment just to an individual event. We don't allow judge prefs are a debate thing, but I always click no judge prefs. I don't know why, it's just a habit at this point. Couple other sections down at the bottom. Breakout or flags. You could create a breakout of an event. So say I have championship oration and I want to break novices out of my championship oration into a separate elimination round. I could create a breakout called like novice oration. And if I save that, now it's going to ask me questions. And so like at registration, if somebody was eligible for novice oration, I would click, yes, I want the coach to mark on their registration who would be eligible for that event. If they're already in the elimination round for oration because they're such a good novice, this exclude entries would mean don't put them in the novice one, leave them where they are. You could create multiple, you could create all kinds of weird stuff. I'm not going to do that right now. Qualifiers, we don't typically require qualifier. You know, this would be like, I guess the DCI debate series or the FCI, the Forensics Coaches Invitational. In theory, they could say we require 2 FCI bids, and I don't know how all that setup would go. And that's all the registration. Wes, the tab that you were talking about earlier, now the important one for online, synchronous and asynchronous, is right here. And this is where different events could be set up different ways. I set my tournament up asynchronously, but I can control individual events. So oration, I'm going to say, yes, it's an online event. Now, the biggest question is it an asynchronous event or is it synchronous? For my tournament, I'm going to do asynchronous prelims and synchronous finals. So for right now, I'm just going to say asynchronous because when I click that, it's going to create a place on the registration for the coach to put the link to the video. Okay. If I don't have asynchronous links to online videos, they don't have anywhere to put a video. In my instance, because I'm going to move to synchronous for finals, after all my preliminary ballots are in, and I do mean every ballot is in, there's nothing missing, I simply go over here and I click synchronous. The reason I have to wait is once I click synchronous, the computer's wiping out all of the links. Okay, there will be no more links. I can't go back and watch those videos again because it's going to clear that out. It's going to remove that setting. I don't think that's the best system, but that's what they're working with right now. I talked to the NSDA last week, and when I said, "Is this how you do that?" They said, "Yes, exactly. Just make sure you don't mess it all up by doing it too soon." My guess would be they fix it pretty soon. If you're doing, for example, I'm doing Extemp, it is completely synchronous. I would click simply, yes, synchronous via pre-created room URLs. I use Zoom. This will mean that I'm able to copy and paste the Zoom meeting link into the schematic so that it shows up to the judges and to the competitors when the schematic comes out, and they can just click that link and it will take them to the place where we're having this virtual tournament. I think it's probably important if you're doing any kind, like figure out where you want all of your questions, concerns, help from judges to go. If you've got an assistant that can take it all, that would be awesome. If it's all coming to you, put an email address where, you know, if the judge has a problem where they can email, a good place to put contact. There is a place for online instruction so that you can give judges instructions. You could put troubleshooting tips there if you wanted to. You could put a disclaimer there that said like, if you have a video that doesn't have sound or video, rate it based on what you see. That is, you know, whatever you needed to specifically, you could put there. Okay.
No.
Mike?
Yeah, Richard.
Going back to the synchronous, asynchronous, could you have an event called Oration that was only rounds 1, 2, and 3, and an event called Oration Finals that was just finals? And then 1, 2, and 3 could be asynchronous, and finals could be synchronous?
You could. You would have to, after you did your oration prelim rounds, I think you double up the work because you would have to go back and re-register your finalist into that second final event. It wouldn't
be
do
a problem with assigning judges as well.
Yeah. I think what I can do is show you how to set up everything in advance so you won't have to worry about making any change. I mean, aside from making this one button click here, everything else should be automatic in terms of what judges get pulled and how it does all that.
Okay.
We're going to get to the schedule in a second, Richard. And if I don't answer the question there, say something and I'll try to figure out where the answer is. And I couldn't figure why I didn't know where it was. Okay. I'll tell you what, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to say 9:30. We're going to see what we can get. I think we can get through it all in 20 minutes. I look at these and yeah, we get through it in 20 minutes. Okay. Sectioning. Now this is where you're telling the computer how you want it to create the sections for each event. When it says section labels, that's saying, do you want it to be section 1, section 2, section 3, or do you want it to be called section A, section B, section C? That's a preference thing. In Kansas, I find most of our, like if there's 4 sections of US Extemp, it's usually section 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's schematic orientation. This is like, we typically are a vertical orientation. We have the room number at the top with the competitors underneath it. Horizontal would have the room number on the side with the competitors listed out horizontally. That's more of a paper thing for how it would print it. Like I said, everybody likes vertical. My mentor hates horizontal. So when I host a tournament, I make all my schematics horizontal just to piss him off. Don't tell Lynn. List entries by. Now, we've talked about how to code entries, and you said, yeah, some people have said we want to code by letter or number. This would list, this is how they would show up on the schematic. So if you say list them by code, that means when the schematic shows up, there aren't going to be any names. It's only going to have numbers or letters. And the only reason I say that could get difficult is if you're running a synchronous event and you've got 50 people in a Zoom room and you need to move them to a breakout room, trying to figure out what name matches what code is going to be time consuming. You're going to have to figure out how you want to deal with that. I also mentioned earlier that Tabroom would let you choose the code as the person's name. And this is where if you say list entries by both and you have the code set as the name, it would literally put the code as their name and then put their name a second time next to it. And it makes the schematic look really weird. Use same rooms round to round. I do click this button. That just ensures that every round, the room numbers for that event are going to turn out the same way. Default section size typically in forensics is 6. That's what I do. You can set the minimum. I usually do a 5 minimum and a 7 maximum. Now, I know at my tournament that some events are 7-minute events and some are 10-minute events. For oration, I sure don't want somebody watching more than 7. If this is impromptu, I might make my default section size 8 with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 10. Like you could adjust it however you want. 6, 5, 7. Allow double entries to speak early. This assumes a world where everybody goes in order and speaks at a scheduled time in every event, which isn't typically how we have done things. In an asynchronous world, this doesn't matter. Tabroom puts a star next to the names on the ballots of everybody that is double entered. So even on an online ballot, when it has the list of names, if the person's in more than one event, it will star them and tell the judge that the person is double entered. If you click yes here, that's telling the judge it's okay for this person to go out of order and speak early because they need to get to another event. Limit a school to a percentage of a section. So if I've got 6, my default section size is 6, and I don't want East High to have more than a third of the people in it, I could just limit this to 33%. No matter what, like it will create extra sections to avoid more than 33% of a section being the same school. That's usually not a problem. Snake prelims based in seeds. More popular in other parts of the country is they power match preliminary rounds in forensics tournaments instead of pre-scheduling all 3 prelims. So after round 1 is done, they'll power match round 2. And what this does is when it power matches round 2, it takes a list of the competitors. And so if there's 3 sections of extemp, it would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it snakes them so that each section has a balanced power. You know, you don't have all good people in one section. And so when it power matches, that's how it sets that up. In elims, the computer sometimes, depending on how you want things, the computer will default in elims. Well, I mean, you only have one file. If you had semifinals and you had multiple elims, sometimes you get the same school problem when it does that snake. And this allows you to be like, do you adjust or not adjust? Like when it shows up and now I've got 3 people from the same school because the snake, how does it want it to adjust? Should no, don't adjust it at all. Yes, adjust it by seed. Like I don't think we have to worry about this. The only thing you would have to worry about is if you had semifinals and finals. Auto scheduling. We preset all of our preliminary rounds, but Tabroom does just like automatically schedule the next round up. So if your round 3's done in an event and all the ballots are in and you've got everything set up, Tabroom will go ahead and schedule your final for you. And if you don't tell it to do anything, if you click yes here, it will not schedule your pairing for you. You have to do it manually. If auto scheduling is on, sometimes I'm still faster than the computer and I get to it and I have to do it the old fashioned way. And we'll talk about that another time. Some coaches don't like the auto scheduling because they want to be able to go back and see it and double check and make sure that everything's right. That's a preference thing. This is looking at judging for the event. We talked earlier about, schools, can the school mark neutral judges? Yes, they can if they want to. You could choose an event. You could say like, it's Scream and Shout at Mays South, and it's okay that Mike Harris judges kids from East High and Scream and Shout. So you could, Wes could click here. Yes, judges can judge their own school. I don't care.
I'm not doing that online this year.
I know. I
don't want people to scare the other people in their house.
The police are getting called on Wes in homes from throughout Kansas.
I'll have to find another unique event.
Right. Block first year out judges. This is kind of the Acacia rule. Like prelims, you can have first year out judges, but elims, no, or some events. Allow repeat judging. Can the person judge the same event more than once? Again, we set tournament wide rules earlier. Now you can overrule those. Allow repeat judging on other sides debate. This would be like if they judge a team on AF, yes, they can see them again, but not on the same side. Or you can have the same judge a second time, but not twice in prelims. Allow repeat judging in elims. They even have the whole like, we'll allow repeats unless they vote against somebody in debate. And if they vote against somebody, then we won't let, like, every option under the sun. Publish. This is the way that things show up. So the first one is publish judge codes, not names. This would be if you chose the judge names to show up, but you didn't want the public to see them for some reason, you could make it anonymous. Invert public posting order. So for finals, when we do paper breaks, sometimes we're like, the top seed is the last speaker, and we kind of go in order when we seed finals. So you could set it to invert the posting order. Enable live updates. You probably do want to click. With Tabroom, your students and your coaches and your judges have the ability to go into the tournament and follow entries. They can follow, you can follow your students and your judges, and you'll get blasted messages with everybody's information. Or you can have the students be like, you need to follow yourself. And every time the kid's pairing comes out, they will get an email or a message with that information, or the judge will. If you click yes here, it allows before the tournament people to sign up to follow themselves. Prep draw time offset. Oh, I don't want to tell you how this works because I can't remember. We have found an extent that it's much easier to create an old-fashioned manual schedule where, this assume where we put draw time, speak time, and then we put the codes in that sheet and we share that with the competitors somehow, with the coaches. Anonymous public pairings. This is if you don't want the public to see who it is, you only want them to see codes. Auto publish results. If you say yes here, you can choose. If it's win-loss only, it will show like after a round, what are the score? It'd show like win-loss only for forensics would probably show ranks and points to the public for each round after all the rounds are complete. Full results would even show the public comments and feedback from the judge, and I don't think that you want to do that. I would also say that it's a pretty divisive issue, publishing results, more divisive than some might think. There's a lot of coaches that don't want their novices to see how they're doing. And the kids, we'll find out, if you don't want to tell them how they're doing and a tournament has it set up, they'll find their results regardless of whether or not you want to do it. So just something to be conscientious of as you're scheduling your tournament and attending tournaments. Judges may blast publish results. This is a debate thing, and this means like after the judges finish with the round, they have the option when they've entered their ballot to make it public themselves, and that's more of a debate setting. I will tell you the thing that I play with most before a tournament is usually the day before, the week before the tournament. It's adjusting the section size to make the number of rooms match what I want it to do, and just fiddling with that. All right, tabulation. This one is going to be important because this is where you're going to set up how you want the judges to be able to score. The first question you're asked is what do you want the point increments to look like? Everybody has different ways they do it. In debate now, the norm on the national circuit is 10th points between 27 and 30. And there's a weird rubric for that. Some schools do half points where you can give somebody a 27.5 or 28.5, quarter points, or you could just keep it whole points. Remember, these are points, not ranks. So this would be like somebody could get a 128.5 or a 1. It's up to you what you want to do. I think typically in forensics, we do whole points. Allow lower points to get better ranks. Now here's where Tab Room saves our butts. You know how you get those ballots where the judge messed it up and the ranks and the points don't match and you got to go back? Yeah, Tab Room won't even let them submit their ballot if it's not right. Okay, if you don't click this little allow lower points to get better ranks, if you leave it as no, if they try to submit their ballot and they've got somebody with good ranks and low points, it will tell them, no, you have an error, go back and fix it. So I recommend you don't click yes. If you click yes here, it's the wild, wild west. And, whatever they put on their ballot is whatever they put on the ballot. I do recommend you put tied points because you're going to have more than 128, more than 129. Don't allow rank ties, though. That'll get confusing. Autofill blank ranks on ballots. This would be like in Congress. If you've got 16 people a chamber and only 9 speak, everybody gets a 10 even if they didn't speak. It would fill in blanks. Minimum speaker points and maximum. I would just tell you that we're starting to find that it's good to put a bottom on the minimum speaker points so that you don't get judges that tank a kid one round because they don't understand that, hey, that 120 you just gave, that means my kid doesn't break. Okay. A 125 would have been awesome, but a 120 ain't going to cut it. So you could put a minimum where the judges can't go below a certain score if you wanted to. You also have the ability to set up your round where I can say, like, my round, this is how many minutes this is going to last, and after that many minutes the ballots are closed, judges have to put their scores in, it's done. I've seen tournaments do this in debate where they're like 2 hours after the start of the round the ballots are in, and if the judge doesn't have a decision, the computer just assigns somebody a win and a loss, which is a way of saying quit messing around, get to your rooms, get moving, we're not playing games. I don't think we have to do that. Now, using online ballots. If you're going to do an online tournament, this is where you've got to click yes. It's going to ask you again what you want the speaker point scale to be. Make it match what you put up top. I don't know why it asks you to do the same thing twice. It doesn't seem to make sense. You can make a minimum word count for your judges. Everybody hates those ballots that don't have any feedback. If you wanted to say, I expect a minimum of 100 words per competitor, you could put that on there. The ballot also will have a speech timer. So for each event, if you want to have a timer there for the judge, an official timekeeper, tab room will be the official timekeeper, and you can set the timer to be whatever you want it to be. Output.
Do you recommend giving a minimum word count? Have you tried that, or?
No, it scares me.
So Mike, if I do a grace period, like 30 seconds, would I put 10.5 in the default timer, or just leave it 10?
I think you just leave it 10 and it would just hit 0. And I think that would be one of those instances, like if you wanted to do this, you probably needed to make sure that there's a message on the ballot with specific instructions for what the judge is to do. So, you know, all Acacia rules will be applied. Each speaker will get a 30-second grace period beyond the time. And that's where I try to stay out of this conversation, because, and I'll be really honest, I caused a stink in the Sunflower District with the former coach of East High School at a national qualifying tournament when she had one of the best extempors I'd ever heard give a 13-minute speech in finals because he knew that we could not time keep. And I sat there and I judged that round and I ranked him last, and they told me I couldn't rank him last. And I said, you're going to stop me from ranking him last. That's BS. He went to nationals. He was fine. He's a friend of mine today and then a love of our program. But it's really what's best, what's up to you. I also have coached extempors that if they don't time keep, hey, guess what? Keep talking. You can set up a novice award if you wanted to set up novice awards. You could set up honorable mentions where if somebody has a rank tie, but they don't advance to finals, when you do your award script, it will flag people that there was a tie based on ranks, but they didn't make it. Or as Kathy said earlier, in Kansas, typically if there's a tie on ranks from prelims, we just pull. Ballot and rules. We put earlier like what information from the student about their piece and all of those things. These are also a place where you can put additional information on your ballot specific to an event. I did take the time the first year I set my tournament up to like copy and paste all of the event descriptions that were on my paper ballots in here, so that when the judge got their electronic ballot, it looks just like the paper ballot looked. It has the same type of instructions. If you have a panel, like in elims, if you had a panel, tab room will let you designate who the chair of the panel is, and you could put instructions to them like, please announce the winner, or please announce at the end of the round once you're, if you had specific message to that person. I don't know, beneath scores and before submit, I guess this would be some like one last warning. There is a statement of bias on the ballots as a default on every single ballot from the NSDA this year that talks about the way that stereotypes affect our decision-making in judges and how our biases can negatively affect students, especially students that are coming from marginalized or disenfranchised positions. And it just asks the judge, before you write anything, take a moment to reflect on what you're about to do and make sure that you're doing things the right way. You know, I might even add, and I was thinking about this, like I like the 3-to-1 rule for every criticism. Try to have 2 or 3 positive things to say for the student. There's nothing wrong with putting that on a ballot as a reminder, especially if we have young judges. It's also a good thing that you can include in judge training, just to remind if you do a judge training. Okay. Updates. This would be where I've never done it this way, but if you follow an event to receive text message or emails when events first and last ballots are entered and confirmed. So I guess like if you were a hands-off tournament manager and you had somebody else managing your tournament, you could set this up where it would shoot you an email when the ballots started coming in and when the last one was done, so that you could be triggered to, you would know, hey, all right, I need to pay attention to that one and make sure things are going right. There is an auto backup, and I do recommend, there's a lot of people that feel like, what happens if tab room crashes? A couple things. Tab room, nobody knows it, but there's like a second version of tab room, a mirror image of tab room that's automatically backed up. So even if the whole website completely crashed, which it's done before, not for a long time, by the way, they still have all the information that they back up on a regular basis on a backup site, and they can pull it over. You also can back up your events round to round. So like when your round is scheduled and blasted, it will send a backup to your email. So if there was a problem, here's an example. I was at middle school nationals the first year that I worked in the tab room, and I was overseeing public forum debate at nationals, and public forum debate at nationals was double flighted with online ballots. And we were just about to get done with round 1, the first flight of round 1. And I accidentally deleted the entire round 1 at nationals in the middle of the flight with judges working on their ballots, and it's gone. There was no backup. We also didn't have printed copies. I was lucky enough to find somebody's cell phone who still had the web browser pulled up with that schematic on it, and we were manually able to do it. So I call this the Mike Harris rule of tab room. It's an auto backup function. So if you do something stupid like me and delete an entire round of a national championship in the middle of it, you can fix it. Fake entries. This is your, just like fake judges, when you're ready to and everything's set up and you want to start playing with scheduling rounds and how that works, you can set up how many schools, how many total entries. You can even like throw some anomalies and be like, give me 2 big schools to make it hard on tab room to figure out. This will allow you the ability to go back and play and set things up. 9:31, schedule sites. Now we're finishing. Schedule. This is really simple. On the right side, I set my tournament up as a 2-day tournament, so it's showing me the 2 days. We're looking at Friday right now, so for that day, I would simply go in and I would add time slots. So my first time slot on a Friday is round 1. The start time for round 1 on Friday is 3:30 p.m. The end time for that round, it's going to be a Lincoln Douglas round for me, 4:25, because my next round is going to start at 4:30. Make sure when you schedule round times that the end time for your previous round is earlier than the start time for your next round. For example, if I said the end time of this round is 4:30, I could not make round 2 start at 4:30. The computer would get tripped up and be like, you can't have 2 rounds going at the same time. That's not how computers think. I simply add my round. I'm going to bypass and go to Saturday real quickly. Saturday, I also have round 1, but this is round 1 Saturday. I'm going to make that distinction in the name. So when I look at things later, I could like round 1, and I know that's my Friday. Round 1 Saturday, that's an 8 o'clock round. It goes till what? 9:25 a.m. round 2 Saturday. Maybe. Round
Hybrid tournament, would we just put in like the end time for our judging more or less?
for which one is that? I'm sorry.
Like if we're doing a hybrid tournament and they're judging round 1 async, like does it matter what times we put in?
Yeah, it depends on how you do it. There's 2 ways that you can do it. One is you can just set up. I did something wrong. Oh, I set it up for 10:59 p.m. instead of 10:59 a.m. and it said that won't work. You could set all. So for my tournament right now, my East tournament, I have the tournament start date is Tuesday, so it shows up as Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as preliminary rounds. I think I don't have them set up as different times. I'm just going to manually force judges into multiple rounds simultaneously. I'm basically going to shut down everything the computer wants to do and keeping people from judging at the same time. And there's a special way to do that, and I don't want to get into it right now because it's 4 tabs over here. You could set up your tournament where like you could do Tuesday and you could set up round 1 as all day on Tuesday, and you could set up round 2 as all day on Wednesday, and round 3 is all day on Thursday. You could even go so far as to tell judges Tuesday will be these events, Wednesday will be these events, Thursdays will be these events, if you wanted to go that far. So you could schedule like round 1 on Monday. But the honest truth is I don't know exactly how it's going to look because we haven't done it yet. I know there's 2 ways to do it. I'll ask me again in a week and I'll tell you how it worked. I wish I could tell you more there. I wanted to do 2 rounds here because I want to show you how to schedule the rounds. We only have 1 event. If we had multiple events, they would all be listed on the right side under schedule rounds. And right now there's only oration. Because it's in pink or in red, it says there's no round scheduled yet. So that means this is an event that I need to set up with the schedule that I've created. So when I click on oration, it's going to show me all the rounds that I've created. I created a round on Friday and 2 on Saturday. I want oration to be only on Saturday, so I just don't click the Friday. It doesn't assign it to that. Round 1, I'm going to label it. And the reason I'm going to label it is it's that abbreviation thing. And I've just found when I don't abbreviate something, at some point it'll come back to haunt me. There'll be a missing spot that I need information. It won't exist. Prelim preset, perfect. Now, if this was an elim round or the final round, I would simply just change the type of round to final. Whether it's final or elim, it would pull the correct tiebreaker because I'm going to go over here and tell it what tiebreaker to use. So for prelims, I'm going to use speech prelims. For elim, I'm going to use speech elims cumulative. I only have 1 flight. I'm not moving this round any. I'm just setting it up. And so now when I click save, the red is going to turn blue, which tells me that it's done. And it's going to show me what the OO schedule looks like from that point on. And you can go back. And the hard part about this is you've got to go and set the schedule for each event, but you can clone them. Once you've done 1 event, you can clone the schedule from 1 event to the next event. And that makes it easy. I only have 1 event set up, so I can't show you that. So for the time slot schedule, just start thinking about how you want it set up. The asynchronous stuff, just set it up early for now and I'll work with you. Just holler at me and I'll try to work with you and figure that out as we go. And then once you get it set up and all your events set up, you just need to go in and set this. Last thing that we're going to worry about, we set up the site that your tournament's going to be hosted at earlier, which like this, I said, this is at Astra Forensics. Whatever your school is, online debate hall. You've got to add your room numbers. Yours will be blank when you start. I'm using an existing one, which is why there's room numbers set up. The first time you do it, it'll be blank. It'll just have this add new. You've got a couple of choices to add new. This week I played with, for the DCI and Novice State debate tournaments, we did letter prefixes. So A was all of the rooms for Novice State, and it was A starting in 101. So A101, A102, A103. And I just said, start with A101, I need 35 rooms, and it made those rooms for me. Then I went for the next event and I said, all right, my next event's going to be in the B hall. Make me a whole bunch of B rooms. I changed for B hall. This is just me. I changed B's to 201 instead of 101, so I didn't have overlapping rooms. If tab room will set things up there automatically. If all of those rooms were going to go to the same Zoom meeting, like we're in the same Zoom meeting and this is going to be our pool room, you could also put the URL for the meeting right here, and it would automatically put that URL, that link that all of the people on that event assigned to those rooms are supposed to go to. In the end, after you've created, or you can manually enter stuff. In the end, once you've started creating some rooms, you'll get something that looks like this. Okay. Zoom defaults its breakout rooms as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the easiest thing for me to name my rooms here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because when I set up my Zoom rooms, I don't have to rename them. It does it they match. Once my Zoom meeting's set up, I just go in here and I put the link to the meeting. Like, for example, like I said, for this, if this was the pooling room, I would just put the link for any room that these people needed to come here. The way that I've thought about this is you maybe have all the speech kids go to one pooling room, have all the theater kids go to another pooling room. Depending on synchronous and asynchronous, like I'm not sure what it'll look like. You'll just have to kind of figure out how it works best for you. You don't have to use a password. I choose to use a password. I don't like running Zoom rooms with a waiting room. I don't want to have to worry about remembering to let people in and that I've got 20 people messaging me that they can't get in the room. I put a password on it. Make sure you don't share the password publicly. We did have a Zoom bomb incident last week. It's the first one of the year because a tournament host put the password on the website and somebody showed up in that room and played an inappropriate video for them. In theory, tab room will set it up too, where you could like give the judge a master URL that allows them to be in charge of a room, and you could do all kinds of stuff. I don't even know what CCID means. Once you've got your room set up, you can turn them on or off depending on how many rooms you need. Like for debate, I use JV or open as prefixes sometimes, or novice. You could make rooms like my Congress rooms are called Congress House 1, Congress House 2, Congress Senate. You could call a room LD 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 001, whatever's best for you. And then once you've set a room up for the first time, it'll always show up from then on out. And it's just a matter of turning on and off rooms to match what you need. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't mess with any of these. I really haven't messed with any of these like import from files or time blocks. This would be if you're hosting a complicated tournament and you want to block out like what time certain rooms are available and not available, you could do that. Site settings, I believe this is just where you can, is it an online site or a in-person site? Who is the host? If it was in person, you could put directions or a map or whatever you needed to. I think that's 2 hours and 45 minutes of madness. What do you all think? That's a lot of information. is it starting to make sense in terms of how things are set? Like because it's pretty intuitive once you get into it. And I hope by chunking it up into small pieces, it makes it easier to grasp as you go.
Hey, Mike, I just want to say a great big thank you. I know this has taken a lot of time for you to do all of this and to help prepare all of us. So thank you so much.
Oh, not a problem. Like, I'm just glad the kids are going to get an opportunity to compete this year. I mean, at the end of the day, for all this COVID craziness, can we please let the kids at least have some normalcy in their lives, even if it's not quite the same, just something. And I'll say this virtual thing, these kids are going to have to learn how to communicate effectively using this stuff because it's what their future is going to look like. And I sort of feel like it's up to us to, yeah, I saw like cringing faces. I hate to say it, but it's like, I'm glad I'm not going to have to deal with it my whole life. I miss in-person contact already. That's me. Do y'all have any questions? I'm sure there will be after this thing's over.
Thanks again, Mike, for agreeing to field questions essentially for the entire state. That's pretty big.
No, it's all good.
My dog is very excited for me to get off Zoom.
Well, well, if my kids are awake, I bet they're gonna be excited too. But no, I'm happy to do it. And seriously, don't hesitate to email me, ask me questions. If I don't get back to you immediately, I apologize. I know that there were 2 people in here earlier that I've been putting off responding to an email because for quite a while, not on purpose. I'm just trying to keep up. State debates this weekend, so it might take me a couple days to get back to you. But once state debate's done this weekend, we'll be in good shape. All right, that's all I got. I'm gonna turn off this recording so I can curse again. I'm kidding.